Welcome back. Two kings of the North, Doug Lesmerises and Bill Landis. I am back in my home office, unlike on Monday. And now Landis is out of his home office. You are seeing Bill coming from an undisclosed location.
That's right. I'm safe. I'm okay. We're in a hotel for a couple of days because it's 100 degrees in the Midwest and everywhere else in the country, and our air conditioner decided to break. So
yeah,
we have a thing. We're able to check the temperature in our house from remotely. I think our current temperature in our home is like 88 degrees. So we're in a hotel until that gets fixed.
Drip. If you're in the live YouTube chat and your air conditioner has broken this season, give a shout out. Ours broke like before it got really hot. And then it's hard to get an appointment, right? Like everybody's experiencing this. A lot of people in the upper half of the country are going through a heat wave. And then you overload the system and it breaks. And there's only so many air conditioner repair people in the world.
Yes, I called 2 days ago and they can't come until tomorrow. So
yeah.
It's all right. We'll get it fixed.
Yeah. Is there a pool? You going in the pool at all? The hotel?
TBD. We don't know if there's a pool. We got to do some research, see if there's a pool here later when we're done doing the show.
Okay. Mr. Substantial says change your filters, which also is just applicable.
We change our filters. No, get off the back. We change our filter. Well, my wife does. I didn't say we. My wife does it. I don't do it. But that's not the issue. We need a new capacitor, something. I don't know. I'm not a mechanic.
That got hot. How dare you, Mr. Substantial? Suggest that the Landis family does not change its filters. You take that back. We're going to do more rivalry stuff on this show. We did non-conference rivalries to save, to prioritize, and how to save them on the Monday show. We certainly would direct you to that. Today, we tried to do this last Wednesday, and we ran out of time on the Ohio State-Oregon show. 10 new rivalries. And this is different, Landis. The rivalries we're going to talk about today, because we had talked about distance. I think I said at one point, like defining and distance are two keys to a rivalry. That is not the case here. This is a different kind of rivalry. We have 10 we're going to discuss. And I think clearly college football fans understand this, Bill. It's a different deal because it's more based on your place in the sport, how important the games are. It might be even luck or a little randomness that gets you to play these teams repeatedly. And distance doesn't matter as much. But I do think as in the evolving nature of college football, we have to think about rivalries in a multitude of ways. So this is another rivalry show, but in a very different a lot of ways from Monday.
Yeah, you can be familiar without having that close proximity, I think, now.
Yes.
Right? I think everyone in a million different ways, the world is smaller than it used to be, including in college football. So, yeah, you don't have to get in your car for a comfortable drive, I guess, to your rival anymore for it to rise to that level.
We're also going to do Whatcha at the end. I have multiple photos, and we're going to do Ask KOTN questions and comments in the middle of the show. We have some good topics. We have some rival reaction, that kind of thing. I do want to react to this. This is from and again, if you guys ever want to participate and send us comments, criticisms, maybe some nice things, questions, reactions to things we said, maybe there's a couple we have for today's show that are totally new ideas that we had not really thought about. And our smart, educated, dedicated, loyal Northern College football listeners bring a topic to the table that we can all discuss together then that we didn't think of. AskKOTN@gmail.com. But I did see this on Twitter, and we always want you guys to check us because we are not infallible. We are not perfect. This is from Klingle7. They were listening to the pod from Monday. It cracked me up how you murdered Penn State's non-conference this season and Michigan's non-conference games in 2023, and you conveniently didn't mention the joke that was Ohio State's non-conference schedule in 2024. And so that's on me, and that is correct, because to double-check this, and there's a point I want to make, Bill, about there's so much discussion about how many conference games you could play. Strength of schedule is one of the defining topics of the offseason, along with suing everybody for money and all that kind of stuff. It does undercut a little bit. It's less fun to mock the SEC for playing Tennessee, Chattanooga, and the Citadel when the Big Ten's last two national champs and a very strong national title contender this year played nobody in the non-conference. It does take away a little bit of the juice of that discussion for us from a Northern perspective. Does it not, or do you disagree?
No, I think it does. I guess I would say I don't want to necessarily be an Ohio State defender in this particular situation, but like Ohio State historically plays good teams in the non-conference. It doesn't do it every year, and it happened that last year it didn't. But yeah, it's fair to point out. It actually makes me want to go back and look at all the national champs and see who they played in the non-conference.
Well, it's a very difficult discussion. Let me drop this on you first because I looked it up. Michigan 2023, just a reminder, East Carolina, UNLV, Bowling Green. Ohio State last year, Akron, Western Michigan, Marshall.
Mm-hmm.
Penn State this year, Nevada, Florida International, Villanova. That's 9 games that have no juice and are huge lopsided games.
Juiceless.
Michigan won its 3 non-conference games in 2023 by 27, 28, and 25 points. Ohio State last year won its 3 non-conference games by 46, 56, and 35 points. Penn State right now is a 45.5 point favorite over Nevada, which might be the best non-conference team it plays. So it's not cool. I do think intent matters, and intent is one of the most dangerous things to discuss in life. Because I can remember a conversation my college roommate and I had very much about if you are a doctor and you are saving people's lives, let's say, right? If your intent, like the reason you do it is because you want to help people, that's great, right? But what if your intent is that you want to be godlike and rich, and that's why you became a doctor, and you don't really care about helping people, but that's the byproduct of you wanting to be godlike and rich, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, who cares about intent? Because both those doctors are saving people's lives. So does intent matter, right? And sometimes we try to impugn, is impugn the right word? We try to find intent that doesn't exist. Sometimes we apply intent. Sometimes we miss intent when it's there. So in the end, sometimes the safest thing to do is just go by what happened. And what happened is in 2023, 2024, the national champions played crappy non-conference schedules, and Penn State, a national title contender, is playing a crappy non-conference schedule this year. We'll get to intent in a second, but how much does intent matter? Or is it like your schedule sucked? You can't, there's no dispute. Michigan's 23 non-conference and Ohio State's 24 non-conference stunk.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I'm not as fired up about it as it pertains to Ohio State and Michigan, because we know those teams do go out of their way to play tough teams. Like Penn State's an outlier. So I'm more bent out of shape about it when it comes to Penn State than I am those other 2 teams. So like Penn State, I think like for like Ohio State and Michigan, there's an acknowledgement of we want to play good teams. We're not going to do it every year. Like if you want to do it every year, you're being unrealistic. Which I don't know that I 100% agree with, but I sort of get where they're coming from if that's the view. And Penn State is just like, no, why? Like, no, we're going to make it as easy as we can for us in the non-conference, which like, I don't love that. So I guess that's a conversation about intent, but I don't know that those 3 programs all go about it the exact same way. I think Ohio State and Michigan are far more alike, and Penn State's an outlier there.
So in 23, Michigan did originally have a home and home with UCLA scheduled that Michigan canceled. Mm-hmm. And in 24, Ohio State originally had a home and home with Washington canceled. That Ohio State canceled. So they both had original intent, but then Michigan and Ohio State were the programs that backed out of those and created the easier non-conference schedule. And there was intent in doing that. Get an extra home game, make a little extra money, right? That was whereas Penn State's intent, as you said, their consistent intent is to not challenge themselves in the non-conference as much as Ohio State, Michigan typically do. So there is a difference there. The main thing is it's not fair to discuss Michigan's non-conference in 23 and Ohio State's non-conference in 24.
Sure.
They're the same thing. Penn State's this year is different. But what do we make of the idea in the end as for the fans? Right? We want you love this sport, you love your team, you're paying money for tickets, you're paying money to watch on TV. We want you to have great games. Mm-hmm. Michigan and Ohio State won the national championships with lousy non-conference schedules. Is it a bad message as we beg the SEC to play better games, as we try to congratulate, as we ripped Penn State on Monday? Would Penn State be like, what are you talking about? It just worked for Michigan and Ohio State. What's your stinking problem? We're trying to win a national title here. If they called us up, they heard what we said on Monday, called us up and cited Michigan and Ohio State and said that, what's our answer?
I don't know. I don't know that I have a good one.
I know that stinks.
Yeah, and it's easier like in retrospect to say like it worked, right? But if you go through a season and you don't win the national championship, and then a fan thinks back, I'm like, boy, that home schedule really sucked, and we didn't win the national championship. It's like you want to offer something to maybe balance it out if the season doesn't quite end the way that you hoped it would. So I don't know. Are we being hypocritical?
I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
I think we're definitely being aspirational with scheduling in a way that maybe there's too much proof that it doesn't matter. So we know why we would like schools to do this, but man, sometimes like the last 2 years and what Penn State might win the national title this year. I don't think Penn State's non-conference schedule is going to hinder it in its national title pursuit. And frankly, it might help it. It honestly might help it as they're breaking in a bunch of new transfer receivers and trying to figure out how to play defense without Abdul Carter, right? Like there's just stuff that's like, you know what? Like we'll ease into these three and then really be ready for when Oregon comes to town.
No, it's
not only is
it ideal. Yeah,
it is ideal. So then there's no so then what? Then we're just shouting that it would be cool if you decided to do it, even though it's against your own interests. It's a tough argument to make.
Yeah, it is.
It's hard to argue with college football teams when it's like our cases go against your own interests in service of a cool thing on a Saturday. Now that's for us to talk about, but actually that's not true. In service of a cool thing for your fans who are the heartbeat of your program and the heartbeat of college football. So, but as we talk now, we talked about Ohio State's bad non-conference schedule going into last year. Ohio State's home schedule last year was terrible. Akron, Western Michigan, Marshall, Iowa, Nebraska, Purdue, Indiana, Michigan. So it's like just the Michigan game practically, except then Indiana turned out to be a top 5 matchup when they came to play, right? So, and no offense to Iowa and Nebraska, but I mean, like there's no Oregon on there. There's no Penn State at home on there. There's no Texas like you're getting this year, right? So,
and they're all
what?
At noon.
And they're all at noon, right?
Yeah.
But then also, I'm not sure I heard a lot of people at the Ohio State victory celebration being like, man, this home schedule.
No.
So then it's like, I don't know. We're just shouting to shout. Although, by the way, if we stop shouting to shout, we might not have a show. Okay.
True.
Let's do 10 new college football rivalries, Bill. Mm-hmm. This is, let me define this a little bit. What we mean by this. There have been some rivalries, and is rivalry the right word here? If something is we played each other a lot, the stakes were high, and as a result, we did not like each other. But it was for a limited period of time. Was that a rivalry, or is there a different word that should be applied to that? Or is it just like kind of like a temporary rivalry?
I don't know a better word to describe it. Is there a synonym for rivalry that we don't use enough that we can use?
Don't be coming in here asking me for synonyms.
I left my thesaurus back in my 88-degree home, so I don't know. I think rivalry is fine. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what you would call it.
If somebody wants to suggest a better word, we're here for it. But I think it is because it implies, because rivalry, the main thing that rivalry implies, as much as like we defined it a million ways on Monday, now I'm like, let's define it in a different way 2 days later. Way to be consistent. But it's that you're playing the game, but there's a little like dislike involved, right? Like that in the end.
Yeah.
Right. Like
it happens in pro sports all the time, right? Like a lot of the defining pro sports rivalries, I guess like with the exception of like Yankees, Red Sox, are born out of just consistent postseason matchups. But I don't know that you would call like, they're not rivalries in the traditional sense because you can go years without playing that team, or maybe only play that team like once in the course of an 80-something game season. But then here we are again seeing each other in the playoffs. But like I don't have a better word for that than rivalry, even if it's not the same thing as Ohio State, Michigan that you play every year.
Turkey Bass is saying feud, maybe a feud. Feud. I don't know.
Blood feud. Let's spice
Blood
it up.
feud. Yeah. So like Nebraska-Miami, I think might be the best example of this. They're 6-6 all time against each other. They played in 4 Orange Bowls in 11 years to end the 83, 88, 91, and 94 seasons. And like they played like a bunch of national titles were decided by Nebraska versus Miami. And this was like Tom Osborne's bugaboo. They had the game where in 84, Nebraska scored at the end and Osborne went for 2 to win instead of taking the tie because there was no overtime back then. And a tie might have made Nebraska the national champs, but he was like, no, we're not doing it. They didn't make it. And it's like, that's how you, and then they played that team like 3 more times in the next decade with high stakes. And it's like, well, that's how you do a rivalry, right? So I don't think in that period of time, there's certainly, it's not distance, but they were defining each other with those games. And particularly part of what Nebraska was defined by before they got over the top for the 2 Osborne national championships was their inability to beat Miami with everything on the line. So that, I think, is what we're talking about. Is that a good example?
I think so. How about want to go conflict? Conflict is a synonym for rivalry.
Yeah. Oh, conflict is good because a conflict does imply brevity. That's different than a war. Yeah, brevity, implying brevity. Things we don't do on this show. Clemson, Miami in the modern era. 4 straight playoffs, 3 of them national titles, 15, 16, 17, 18.
Clemson, Alabama. Clemson, Alabama.
What did I say?
Clemson, Miami.
Clemson, Miami. Oh, they're in the same conference. Clemson, Alabama. 4 straight playoffs, 3 of them national titles, 15 to 18. They went 2-2 against each other. That, I think, is pretty good. Yes? Pretty good in defining?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Clemson, Ohio State for a little stretch there, right? Now, first, Clemson, Ohio State starts with the Woody Hayes punch in 1978, which was the first time they played. And then 2013, they play in an Orange Bowl. Braxton Miller gets hurt in that game. That's like kind of a banger of a game. And then they come back and they play in the 16 playoff. Clemson shuts them out. And then they play in the 19 playoff. And Clemson comes back and beats Ohio State. And there's like, the ejection on the targeting and like the rally. And should Ohio State have put it way earlier? And then 2020, they play the next year in the semifinal again. And Ohio State gets revenge there. And by the end of that, Bill, those, like, I still would include 13, but to play in 13, 16, 19, and 20. And 16, 19, and 20 were all in playoff semifinals. And that was when Ohio State was dominating the Ohio State-Michigan rivalry. Like in that little period there, like when it comes to what was happening on the field, Ohio State-Clemson was like a little hotter than Ohio State-Michigan was. I think for Ohio, and Ohio State fans really disliked Dabo. And then Dabo said the thing in 2020 of like, I wouldn't have ranked Ohio State as high as they were. I wouldn't have put them in the playoffs.
He ranked them 11th.
He ranked them 11th. I wrote 9,000 words about Dabo Swinney ranking Ohio State 11th in 2020. So, like, is that a good example? That a little Ohio State, Clemson, like 78 plants the seed, but then 13 to 20, they played 4 times.
It's a great example. Yeah, I think Dabo's presence there really enhances it because he's a good villain. And then that 2020 season, like Ohio State was out there, banging the drum to make sure the 2020 season got played, and it's because they wanted to get back at Clemson and beat them and then go win a national championship. Like that's all that season was about. So yes, I think this is a great example of what we're talking about.
Ohio State, Michigan State, I think is a little one here. The Spartans beat the Buckeyes 3 times in the mid-2000s, in 2011 in the 2013 Big Ten title game, and the 2015 regular season game that kept Ohio State from trying to repeat as national champs. Michigan State was 3-2 against Ohio State in a 5-year period. And then the 17-16 Ohio State win in 2012 was sort of like the moment when a lot of people realized, okay, this Ohio State team that wound up going undefeated in Urban Meyer's first year might be pretty good. And the 2014 game that Ohio State won in East Lansing was a huge revenge game for Ohio State when JT Barrett probably played his best game as a Buckeye in winning that game after they had lost in the Big Ten championship game in 2013. I definitely, as an Ohio State beat writer back then, did a whole thing about, hey, should you don't allow blue shirts in the facility? Should you not allow green shirts in the facility right now? Because Michigan State is actually, in that time period, was much more of a thorn in the side to Ohio State than Michigan was. Is that a good example?
I think it is. Did you contemplate writing an article where you didn't use M, S, or U?
Oh, maybe, because I definitely have written articles where I didn't use M, S, or U. I'm sure I contemplated that. Again, this is my time as an Ohio State beat writer, where you serve your audience there. Yeah. I was way into the Ohio State Michigan State thing. I was like D'Antonio is like, and there's the thing there, and the fact that the coach, and that was the part of it that is a little like Woody and Bo.
Mm-hmm.
That it was, it was D'Antonio, and it wasn't D'Antonio Tressel because Tressel was gone by then, but that Mark D'Antonio was a defensive coordinator for a national championship Ohio State team, and now was like sort of in that time period the only guy in the Big Ten who could do anything with Ohio State in the early Urban Meyer. Like that was even more of it too. So there's a lot there. The other one I have, Alabama-Old Miss. Old Miss beat Alabama 2 straight years in 2014 and 2015. Only LSU in 2010 and 11 was the only other program that ever beat Nick Saban 2 years in a row. And then Alabama had to come back from down 3 touchdowns in 2016 to win 48-43 to avoid a 3-game losing streak against Old Miss. And it like became from afar, right? Mm-hmm. That was like, again, and a lot of these temporary ones, Bill, are a little bit of a thorn in the side kind of thing.
Sure.
That maybe there's an imbalance and it's like there's a great team and there's a good team that's not maybe really on the great team's level, but is beating them multiple times. And now all of a sudden that becomes a conflict or temporary rivalry.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. I actually had not considered that one because it doesn't like rise to the level when you consider the stakes of some of the other games matchups we talked about, but when you combine like the rarity of like Alabama not really losing to teams twice in a row under Nick Saban, with like, there's still familiarity there. I think thorn in the side is a good way to put it. That opens the door to, I think, a couple other matchups that could fall into this category too, if you go about it that way.
And the playoff is going to encourage this. In the 16 BCS title games, there were 10 teams that appeared in more than one BCS title game. Okay. But never was there a rematch in 16 games. Never was there a rematch. In the college football playoff, we've had 4 matchups played more than once. So again, that's not only at the championship level, but like the playoff adds stakes to this, right? And stakes are certainly a part of rivalry. Alabama-Clemson 4 times. Ohio State-Clemson 3 times. Alabama-Ohio State twice, and Alabama-Georgia twice. So like that's, and so there is an opportunity being created here, Bill. For instance, what if Georgia-Notre Dame, they played last year in the playoff, what if that becomes something? Mm-hmm. Ohio State-Tennessee. Tennessee's mad as heck. They came to Columbus and then lost and kind of got mocked, right? For the way they acted and the way they lost. What if that becomes something? If Ohio State and Tennessee play again in the playoff, I bet Tennessee fans are going to see it as a conflict or a mini temporary rivalry. What if Texas Clemson becomes something, right? They played in the playoff last year, a 5-12 game. But what if they meet again this year? But people think both Texas and Clemson are national title contenders. It's like that's part of what we're talking about. I do think an expanded playoff expands these opportunities for new conflicts. Yeah,
we'll see more of them. I guess maybe even a hope could be that some new names find their way in there, but you know, I don't want to be naive and say that that's definitely going to happen. Although if we expand the playoff to whatever it's going to be, 14, 16, we invite even more opportunity. So I think that like really kind of kicks the door down to getting into some of the stuff we're going to talk about with these new rivalries. Yeah. Now we're only 1 year into it, so you have to kind of expand a little bit or extrapolate over a number of years. But I think we're going to see a lot of these pop up because of the nature of the postseason now.
I also would like to say, I meant to say this at the beginning to give everybody like a good tease to listen to the second part of the show. In thinking about rivalries all of this week, I have perhaps come to a new radical place, a new radical decision for me when it comes to how this whole college football thing should work. And what are we doing? And what's the most important thing? And one of the things that I like best on this show, Bill, we like to dive into stuff. We do TMB because we CTM. Too much ball because we care too much, right? Like, and we don't apologize for that. But we like to dive into stuff. I do not want to brush the sauce on. We're grilling. We're grilling ball every show. In my real life, when I grill, I brush the sauce on 3 minutes before I put it on the grill. That is not what we are interested in doing. We are putting it in the sauce and leaving it in the sauce for like 48 hours in the fridge. It's like, why is this taking up space in here? Because we're getting the sauce ingrained in the meat.
Yeah.
We're marinating. That's the word. I was like, I was just sitting, I was talking with my wife earlier about inner monologues and like, how often are you like, I'm on a constant inner monologue. I was on an inner monologue during that outer monologue. And my inner monologue was just based. And I was like, I don't think that's the word I'm looking for. Based. And then you said marinate. And that's why I love you. We marinate in the research. And sometimes, Landis, what we want to do is we want to marinate it so much. We're not necessarily looking to change minds, but we want you to be filled with flavor as a viewer and a listener to this show. We want the flavor to be deep. We want it in every bite. And sometimes when we're marinating, we get a new flavor that I've never even tried myself. And I change my own mind about this wonderful sport through what we discuss. And that, I think, has happened to me this week.
And you're going to tell us in what way later in the show?
Yeah, like 40 minutes from now.
Okay, great. In 2 hours from now, Doug will reveal how his mind has changed.
Based. Number one rivalry. This is the graphic that Mike, the producer Mike, our guy, made the other week. We flashed it on the screen for 2 seconds on last Wednesday's show to tease you for this Wednesday's show because we could not get these done in time to actually do it. Our number one potential new rivalry, and it's the show we did last week for Ohio State, Oregon, is Ohio State, Oregon. Ohio State leads this series 10-2 all time. They played in the 1958 Rose Bowl, then 4 times in the regular season in the 60s. The modern rivalry between the Ducks and the Buckeyes started with the Rose Bowl at the end of the 2010 season. That was like Chip Kelly and Terrell Pryor, and it was a tremendous game. Jake Ballard with the great catch for Ohio, like a tremendous game. Then the 2014 national title, Heisman winner Marcus Mariota, like again, tremendous stage for that matchup. Then the 2021 Oregon win in Columbus. Kayvon Thibodeau is one of the best defensive players in the country. Guess what? He's not playing. Guess what? Oregon's winning anyway in Columbus. Great win for them. Then 2 games last year. We talked a lot after the offseason a year ago, Bill. Could they play 3 times? They wound up playing twice. Future games. We know they played last year. They don't play this year. Oregon at Ohio State in 26. Ohio State at Oregon in 27. Okay? We know the Big Ten schedule's through 28. So they don't play in 28. In the first 5 years of the new Big Ten schedule, they have 3 out of 5 they're playing. Okay. The way that the Big Ten schedule works, if you are one of the 11 Big Ten teams with 1 protected rival, that's like, it's 11 out of 18 have it that way. Penn State has none. Iowa has 3. Some have 2. Michigan has 2, for instance, with Ohio State and Michigan State. If you are one of the 11 teams with 1 rival, and Oregon and Ohio State both are, your rotation schedule in a 5-year period is your rivalry game that you play every year, and then 8 3 plays and 8 2 plays in a 5-year period. Okay, does everybody does this make sense to everybody? They're doing a 5-year scheduling cycle, so more than half, 8 3 plays, 8 2 plays. Ohio State and Oregon are a 3 play in this first 5-year window. Is this burgeoning rivalry important enough for the Big Ten to make this a 3 out of 5 every time? Because I think otherwise, unless the sport completely changes before the next scheduling cycle, which it probably will, I don't know if the instinct of the Big Ten would be, okay, if you were a 3 play in the first 5-year cycle, you'll be a 2 play in the second 5-year cycle. You know what I mean? To balance it out equally. Is balance the goal? Or if you're the Big Ten, do you need to lean just a little bit? It's 60-40. Play 60% of the time instead of balancing it out, playing 50% of the time. Oregon and Ohio State should play 6 times in a decade, not 5. Yeah. We're not looking for balance. If Ohio State plays Oregon more than Ohio State plays Purdue, so be it. If Oregon plays Ohio State more than it plays Rutgers, so be it. Lean into this. Is that what should happen?
I mean, sign me up for Ohio State and Oregon playing more than Ohio State and Rutgers. Yeah. I think so. I guess maybe you could. The only way you could talk yourself out of it, at least in my opinion, my mind would be convincing yourself rather easily that the teams are going to see each other in the postseason too, to like make it up. So you have 6 on the books in conference play in a decade, you might get 4 more in that decade too. Like, so do you need to have 6 in the books, or can you just be comfortable with the 5? I would like to see 6, but I'm also pretty confident that you're going to see Ohio State and Oregon play a couple times in Indianapolis over the next 10 years, provided conference championships are still a thing. And you'll see more playoff matchups between these two teams over the next 10 years too. So if we're not going to get the guaranteed 6 in the regular season, I'm okay with it, only because I know we're going to get postseason games to balance it out.
What about this argument? You actually lessen the chances, even slightly, of both Ohio State and Oregon making the playoff and setting up a potential playoff matchup if you play them against each other in the regular season. That you're giving, you expect these two programs to be in the top tier of the Big Ten now and in the future. And if you play them against each other, you are handing somebody a loss. So if you really want more playoff matchups, then take your 5 out of 10 and don't complain. Is that a reasonable thing? Because I do think conferences think that way. If we're trying to get as many teams in the playoff as we can, we don't want our best teams handing each other a guaranteed loss.
No, the Big Ten probably does think that. The Big Ten wants its best teams in the playoff as often as it can get them there. So why would you create a situation where you're willingly giving one of them a loss? Yeah, I don't, because these two are like, they're not going anywhere at the top of the Big Ten, right?
I don't think so.
Yeah. So no, I actually, that's a pretty strong case, I think, for the Big Ten to not make it more common, more common than it already is.
I do think also for a new conflict, a precipitating event is very helpful. And some of the 10 that we're talking about are based on some precipitating events. Oregon being number 1 and getting spanked by Ohio State certainly feels like a potential precipitating event, even though 2014 national title, huge win for Oregon in Columbus in 21. We've had other games, but for this, like for the Big Ten version of this rivalry, I also think that plays into it a little bit because Oregon wants to get Ohio State back, which is awesome for a discussion like this.
Yeah, no, I mean, those previous games prior to Oregon joining the Big Ten matter. I suppose whatever history you can sort of like glom onto this is great, but it's really starting with like Dan Lanning versus Ryan Day, Oregon in the Big Ten versus Ohio State in the Big Ten. So to have even the regular season game was awesome, right? It's a 1-point game that has one of the funkier endings you'll see, and then like a real kick in the teeth for Oregon when Oregon felt like it was kind of on a mission to go win a national title. Yes, there are a ton of layers to this. We haven't even talked about the recruiting part of it. There's so much here. Like a lot of these other ones we're going to talk about on this list are great. I don't think any of them, I don't know that any of them can come close to what this potentially could be between these two teams.
And clearly, Leslie, the fact that Oregon beat Ohio State in its place was a precipitating event for the playoff revenge for the Buckeyes, right? So like it all builds on itself so that they split last year, but Oregon won the regular season, then Ohio State won the national title by beating Oregon, and Oregon was you could make a case that Oregon was the second best team in the country last year, and they just had to play Ohio State early. There's a lot percolating here. There was
even like some undertone of that for Ohio State. They couldn't outright say it because Ohio State was coming off of a loss to Michigan, and it couldn't say like we got our sights on getting Oregon back. And it's like, brother, you got to beat Tennessee first. But like Ryan Day said enough things about how familiar, I think is the term that he used, with the teams on Ohio State's like edge of the bracket. And I think that was just like, yeah, we see Oregon there. Okay. We would like to get another. It was not. He did not lay it on as thick as he did with a lot of the Clemson stuff back in 2019 and 2020, but I felt similar vibes with Ohio State Oregon Part 2 in 2024.
And I do think there can be a natural inclination for college football fans to think it's weird to play a team twice in a season, or especially if you get to 3 times in a season. That's just weird. That's not where the sport has been. Mm-hmm. In the NFL, you play your division rivals twice every year. That the Browns and the Steelers, it's the default. That's what you're supposed to do, and then maybe meet in the playoffs again.
Yeah, the Eagles and Commanders played 3 times last year.
But if you think of it like this, I think it creates the opportunity to take a thing that might feel weird and maybe even bad and try to make it good. And it's like, oh man, why would Ohio State and Oregon play 3 times in a year? But if they dislike each other, while also playing a high level of football, can it spin into, oh man, Ohio State and Oregon might play 3 times in a year?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you think it can?
I thought, yeah, I think it can. I thought they were last year. Yeah, and I was excited about it.
That's not. We're not trying to put icing on a turd here, right? I don't know whether that's an elegant metaphor. Like, hey, the playoff expanded, and like, hey, now playing a team 3 times. No, it actually could be cool. Like, it actually could be cool in its own way.
I think it could be. Yeah, I don't. But as long, I don't want it to happen like regularly. I guess I could see it becoming old very quickly.
Yeah.
But no, because we've like never seen it before, it was like, oh, this could be interesting, especially with 2 teams that are this good. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Rivalry number 2. These are 2 teams leading into this, and we'll go faster on the other ones. Notre Dame versus Clemson. Notre Dame started its agreement with the ACC in 2014, playing 5 ACC games a year. Since then, Clemson and Ohio and Notre Dame have played 6 times. Clemson leads at 4-2. They played in the regular season in 15, 20, 22, and 23. They met each other in the Cotton Bowl in 18. And in the COVID year, Notre Dame was a real ACC team, so they played in the ACC title game in 20. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then they also played twice in the 70s. So overall, Clemson leads this 5-3. But why we have this on here, Clemson, is that Clemson. I just called you Clemson instead of Landis.
Wow. What an insult.
Notre Dame versus Landis. Hey, Clemson, what do you think of that? They're now going to play 12 straight years between 2027 and 2038 in a new deal. They had already been scheduled under the ACC agreement to play 5 times in those 12 years. So in those years, those 5 years, the Clemson game counts as one of Notre Dame's 5 ACC games. The other 7 years, it's not part of the ACC thing. It's like a just like a, hey, play a cool game. Do you love this? Clemson, Notre Dame are going to play every year for 12 straight years.
Yeah, I like it. I like it a lot. Especially if we're not gonna get Notre Dame USC. Like I think I would like to see Notre Dame replace that with something interesting. And
let me interrupt you. If it is a choice, continue Notre Dame USC every year or do this for 12 straight years. If you were running Notre Dame, what would you pick?
I don't know. USC is enticing because USC stinks. You might want the wins. You know what I mean?
It's the Lincoln Riley buyout song. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would maybe lean toward this, not to spit in the face of tradition for anybody who holds on to that dearly. But no, I like this more. I think it's interesting. Like, Clemson's not a Christian school, but it is practically an evangelical Christian school.
Yeah,
playing against Notre Dame, that's an interesting underlayer to it. I don't believe Clemson's going to go anywhere. It seems to me like they got it going back. We believe Marcus Freeman's building something sustainable at Notre Dame, and they're both just like a level above USC. So I'd rather see these 2 teams play.
I would too. And again, if you are a Notre Dame fan who is watching this or listening to this and you think like, you idiots, you don't understand. Notre Dame is defined by USC. Let us know. Ask KOTN at gmail.com. Let us know if you feel that way. But I'd take this. If that's the choice, I'd take this because...
Is it too many? Is this too much? 12 in a row?
So there, I made a reference to the thing... the other day that Penn State and Bama played a decade-long series, like in the 80s. Banger. Loved it. So because you know what this does? This can't, as long as one team doesn't win 10 out of 12, this can't help but be a rivalry.
Yeah.
It's going to matter for the playoff race for at least one of the teams and probably many years, both of the teams. And they're really going to get to know each other. So in a lot of ways, like in rivalry week on this show, Landis, this is exactly what we're asking for. So do I think Clemson and Notre Dame should play every year until the end of time? No. Could this be 8 years instead of 12? Sure. Is 12 too much? No. I like it.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Texas, Georgia is our third rivalry. Oregon, Ohio State 1, Clemson, Notre Dame 2. Are those the right 2 in the top spots here?
I might put Texas, Georgia 2, just because we've seen some pretty high stakes games between them the last couple of years. I don't know. I mean, maybe I would put Ohio State, Oregon clear sort of by itself, and maybe call Notre Dame-Clemson, Texas, Georgia a tie.
Okay. Georgia versus Texas is our number 3 new conflict, temporary rivalry in the modern era. Texas leads this series 4-3, and that's what you're hearing a lot of this stuff. They're like, hey, we're not talking about someone leads this series 43-31. They've only played 7 times, but they played twice last year in Austin in the SEC title game. Georgia won them both. 5 previous games, the 48 Orange Bowl, the 83 Cotton Bowl, the 2018 season Sugar Bowl, and regular season of 57 and 58. So last year when they played in the regular season, it was the first time they played in the regular season since 1958. But guess what? Here we are. This is the new SEC. And if you thought it was going to be Bama, and when Bama and Texas played the little non-conference thing right before Texas joined the SEC, you probably thought, oh, it's going to be Texas-Bama. And then you had stuff there because Texas tried to hire Nick Saban. And you like, we're talking about some precipitating incidents, right? Except now, Kalen DeBoer, Bama doesn't precipitate anything for me. And so, and we can talk about that a little bit later. So I think this is it. It's at Georgia this year on November 15th, because last year the game was at Texas. They are playing again this year. The SEC hasn't announced schedules for 2026 or beyond, but like this is one of those where should the SEC lean into this? And the SEC has discussed, like, if we're going to get to 9 conference games, would everybody have, I guess, 3 protected rivals? I don't think Georgia-Texas is a protected rival, but like how can or should the SEC lean into this? Or is this just play a normal amount of games against each other? And by the way, we'll probably see in the playoff 2 or 3 times every 5 years.
Yeah, I think it's similar to Ohio State, Oregon, right? Like, especially now that you've planted a seed in my head of like, it's probably best for the conference that these teams don't play each other every year. So I don't think we'll ever get to that point. But if they can get on a cycle of playing 5 or 6 times a decade, I think that's right. Again, it's like 2 other programs. As long as Kirby Smart's at Georgia, I don't think they're going to fall off, and Texas seems to be ascending.
Yeah.
So I don't know that either one's going anywhere. Like in this particular analogy, like Georgia is to Ohio State as Oregon is to Texas, but I don't think that's going to change like over the next decade. I like short of unforeseen like catastrophic penalties or something like that. I don't know how any of these 4 teams would lose their current standing in the sport.
This series does not have the things that Ohio State, Oregon has, like playing in a national championship game in 2014, like a recent huge game where Oregon comes into Columbus and wins. So this is just, we think these are going to be the 2 best teams in the SEC, and Texas is new and they haven't played each other much, but now they're going to play each other. So there's not really the precipitating incident is what was Kirby yelling about at Texas last year? What were they? They're throwing barbecue on the field. I can't remember. Why was Kirby was mad?
There was garbage. There was garbage thrown on the field, but I forget why there was garbage thrown on the field.
And then there was when was the thing? My daughter was very into when the steer scared the dog. That was a thing.
Oh yeah. That's good.
Your steer scared my dog. Let's go. That's how they do
live
it down
animals
there.
in the mix. Yeah, if you're getting live animals in the mix, take it up a few notches.
God, wouldn't it be great? I mean, we'd really do something for the rivalry if the LSU Tiger ate the Georgia Bulldog one day. I mean, we don't want that to happen. We're not wishing for dogs to be eaten by tigers. But if you're talking about precipitating incidents in a rivalry, remember the time the LSU Tiger ate the Georgia Bulldog? Yeah, it's a protected rivalry now. That would definitely be a thing.
Yes, I would call that a precipitating moment.
Yeah, we love dogs. Everybody loves dogs. We're doing a whole camp this weekend with my family. We're doing a family camp with our dog. So, I mean, like, I'm not being flippant about the Georgia Bulldog being eaten. I just want to make that clear. Look at this. I wear a hat with a bulldog on it. BYU-Colorado. Colorado leads this series 8-4-1. They did not play the regular season last year, but BYU beat Colorado in the Alamo Bowl. That was their first meeting since the 1988 Freedom Bowl. But there was a time when they played each other a lot. Between 1923 and 1947, they played 10 times. Utah and Colorado have their Rumble in the Rockies that's been played 70 times, and that's kind of a thing. Of course, BYU-Utah has the Holy War. This is the third side of the triangle, and three-way rivalries are pretty interesting, Bill. Like, can we make this triangle something? This is within a conference now. which is different than we've talked about this with Penn State, Pitt, West Virginia. Can you do something with a 3-sided rivalry there? But we kind of would like to see if they could do something here with Colorado, BYU, and they do play this year, September 27th at Colorado. You like this one, right?
I do like this one. It's a little odd to me that they haven't played more. I don't. Maybe there's some history behind that I'm unaware of, or a reason for it. As you mentioned, they're not particularly far away from each other. So I think they could make it work, and it should be easier that they're like, they're in the conference. And I would love it if we can get something going with Colorado, BYU, and Utah, Rocky Mountain themed three-way rivalry. Do you know that all the college football three-way rivalries that have a trophy?
There's I know is it the Commander's Trophy with Army, Navy, and Air Force?
Commander-in-Chief's Trophy with Army, Navy, and Air Force. There are 3 others.
Oh, come on. This is so good. All right, everybody, start thinking about it. We're going to give you 3 seconds. I didn't even know there were any more than just that. There are 3 more.
They're not contested regularly. Well, one is, but the other one of the 3 are. The other 2 are not.
I can't get it. Give it to me. Okay. God, I love this. Like, let's hire someone to build the Penn State Pitt West Virginia trophy that we want to hand out for that 3-way. Oh, okay. Everybody loves 3-ways. Go ahead.
Miami, Florida State, and Florida.
Oh, they do? Okay.
I guess in 2002 they started playing for the Florida Cup. So it's only been awarded 7 times because it can only happen when Miami and Florida play each other. So it's not contested regularly. One we kind of alluded to the other day, BYU, Utah, and Utah State.
Oh, I did not know that.
The Beehive Boot.
Yeah, they do.
Again, not contested regularly and not contested in the future because BYU and Utah State don't have any games scheduled currently.
Battle of Brothers. That's a tough one. That we didn't get into that a ton, but that's a tough one that for them not to play on a regular basis. But it's just BYU Utah takes priority there.
Yes, and then the third one is where are my notes? I lost my notes. The Michigan MAC Trophy between Eastern Michigan, Western Michigan, and Central Michigan, which has been played for since 2005.
I love it. I will say, my town has 3 high schools that always play each other. And the idea that I live in a ville, so the idea of ruling the ville, that if somebody goes 2-0 against the other teams, and if y'all split 1-1, then no one rules the ville. If you rule the ville in my ville, it is a huge deal. So the idea of, can you go 2-0 in the 3-way rivalry and win the trophy? Otherwise, if it's 1-1 for everybody, the trophy stays locked in a safe. It's tremendous content. It's a huge deal. There should be more of these. Bill, we are here to save college football from itself in many ways, and you're doing it right now, even though you're in a hotel.
Even though I'm in a hotel. Does the Battle of the Ville? Do they play for a trophy of your 3-legged dog?
Would that be good?
One leg for each. Yeah.
Why doesn't it have 4 legs? I don't know. There are 4 high schools. But if that family loved ruling the Ville so much, the dog's leg wasn't even diseased. They just cut it off just to be representative. I love it. I couldn't love it more. And I love you. When you bring this, it makes me feel good inside. My inner monologue dies when the outer monologue is that good. Because it's like, I don't need to be talking to myself. I'm just all wrapped up in what Landis is saying. All right, next one is Michigan-Washington. Let's bounce off the all-Northern national title game. Michigan leads this 9-6. Washington at Michigan October 18th this year. Washington beat Michigan at home last year. Obviously met for the 2024 national title, but they also played in 4 Rose Bowls and split it 2-2 at the ends of the 77, 80, 91, and 92 seasons. That's the 3rd most frequent Rose Bowl matchup behind USC Michigan and USC Ohio State. So there's a Pac-12 Big Ten historic nature where they built this rivalry in a lot of ways. Maybe we should make this a rivalry since it birthed the return of Northern football. Can we call this the North Rises series? Washington versus Michigan. The North Rises.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah.
And we'll make a trophy for him.
We'll give him the dragon statue.
Don't Do you have the dragon statue?
I have it.
Okay, I was like, I hate to break it to you. I lost the dragon statue. Okay. But like that, does this feel, and again, this would be one of those where if you want to do this, if the Big Ten just says, we'll do 6 out of 10 instead of 5 out of 10 with a couple of these, we'll lean a little bit. I would be in favor of leaning a little bit into Washington, Michigan.
Yeah, I think you could lean some. Like I would never, obviously would never supersede for Michigan State, Ohio State, or Michigan State. And I don't think for Washington it could supersede the Apple Cup or even Oregon.
Right.
But it's like a third thing there. Yeah.
All right, next one is Arkansas, Oklahoma. They're only 240 miles apart. Barry Switzer played at Arkansas before he became the Oklahoma coach. Mm-hmm. I propose that they should play this on a more regular basis and play it in Cowboy Stadium every now and then as a neutral site, because Jerry Jones also played at Arkansas and then hired Barry Switzer away from Oklahoma to be the Cowboys coach. There's been a discussion about playing. I read a story where they asked Switzer about it, but this was back when like Texas and Oklahoma were in the same conference, but weren't in the same conference before the Big 12 formed in 1995. So that was their big non-conference rivalry. Like you had to prioritize that. There just has never been room for it. But now that they're in the same conference, only 240 miles apart, I like it. They haven't played in the regular season since 1926. So This is just kind of like it's a little bit of Barry Switzer thing, but I think you could play for the Switzer Cup. I mean, I think you could do this. Oklahoma leads 10-4. But there's just nothing here with this. And I will say, again, the SEC, if it goes to a 9-game conference schedule, has already proposed what the 3 permanent rivalries would be for everybody. For Oklahoma, it would be Florida, Missouri, and Texas. So Oklahoma has to play Texas. And then Florida and Missouri. And then Arkansas would be Missouri, Texas, and Ole Miss. But it's just like, I don't know. Could you fix Arkansas, Missouri have a thing? Could you throw out Ole Miss for Arkansas and throw out Florida for Oklahoma and have these two play against each other? I'm just looking for stuff. And this one is a little proximity based, but it's also Switzer based.
I like Switzer based. And plus, you mentioned this in the notes when we didn't get to the show last week. Arkansas and A&M for a number of years played at Jerry World, but I guess that they're scrapping that after, I guess this past year was the last one. So they're not like that's available to play a neutral site game if they wanted to do that. I wouldn't want to make Arkansas play like 2 neutral site games. But if they're removing the A&M one or playing that on campus now moving forward, then play this one there.
All right, West Virginia-Cincinnati is another one we want to discuss. West Virginia leads this 18-3 all time, but this is the deal now that these are like the 2 eastern outposts, northeastern, midwestern, north outposts of the Big 12. And so you were very interested in this, right? Like the idea of trying to make this something more. They were in the Big East together for 7 years from 2005 to 2011. West Virginia went 5-2 in those games. They didn't play again since the Big East until 23 and 24, which again was a great little home and home to schedule. West Virginia won both of those. The Big 12 only protects 4 rivalries right now. This isn't one of them. But they played in 23-24, and they are scheduled again for 26-27. So, like, really good job. West Virginia is really on this. We said West Virginia's backyard brawl plan with Pitt, 4 out of 7 we really liked. They're also doing this. West Virginia is on this. And I think, like, in the Big 12, like, and again, this is the Big 12 scheduling this, but, like, this is the way to do it, I think, that it's maybe not protected, but we're still going to try to give you it a little more than maybe what the math would say. I don't know. I'd lean, again, Big 12, lean into this as much as possible, or should they make this a protected rivalry in the Big 12 now? They're near each other, which isn't true for anybody else in the Big 12 in these 2 teams.
I would consider protecting it only because the geography of the geography in college football makes no sense, but it certainly doesn't make sense in the Big 12. And because these 2 teams are like so far flung compared to the rest of the league, I think it makes sense to lock them in together and make them play every year. Plus, wasn't it last year? West Virginia was playing at Cincinnati and like bust there and stopped in Columbus and practice. Like I love that stuff. Like I like when Ohio State buses back from Ann Arbor. It's like. Yeah, it's just like an old school kind of thing that adds a layer to the lore of the rivalry that I can't imagine. Ohio State doesn't bust to Bloomington; it's like practically just as far. Like, but they bust to Ann Arbor because like it's part of the tradition of the rivalry. So they can do that. These 2 teams can do that too.
Cincinnati and West Virginia are 300 miles apart, The next closest Big 12 team for West Virginia is Iowa State at 850 miles, and the next closest for Cincinnati is Iowa State at 600 miles. So they are twice as close to each other as they are to anybody else. So I get it. And the Big 12 was really held special place for the protected rivalries. Kansas State, Arizona State. I think TCU, Baylor, and then BYU, Utah. So that is a high bar, right? We get it. But do something here, right? I think you can lean a little bit again. And again, the Big 12 has similar things with 2 plays and 3 plays in a 5-year period. At least make this a 3-play in a 5-year period, not a 2-play.
What do you, to backtrack quickly, can I ask you what you think of, this is from M. Gaucho in the chat. What do you think of Georgia and Texas playing for the Horn Dog Trophy?
Oh! Come on. Our people. Because then you know what you got to do after you win the Horn Dog Trophy?
I don't want to know.
You got to light up. Ow. Man, that was a lot of energy to win that trophy. My God. But it's okay because it's dog with a W. So then it's not offensive.
Yeah, right. That's right. Yeah.
Did Gaucho invent that? I have not heard anyone else say the Horn Dog Trophy.
Please, you should lock down a copyright on that one.
My God, we love it. Miami versus Cal. We kind of made this one up. This is the second farthest possible conference game. They are 3,039 miles apart. The only other ones that can challenge this, it's, I think, Boston College. Oh, I got real small type here. Boston College is the farthest.
3,081.
3,081. This is 3,039. And then you had referenced also the Pacific to Piscataway rivalry. Washington-Rutgers is 2,854 miles. So this is the second farthest, but it's like Cal to Miami is more interesting than like Cal to Boston College because it's also opposite corners. And also they played last year and it was crazy. Miami won 39-38, crazy comeback. They were down 25 and ESPN Game Day that was there, just like the whole Cal Twitter thing. So you have a precipitating incident. Last year's Miami Cal game is the precipitating incident. And then it's like, hey, realignment's crazy. We're 3,000 miles apart. Let's play. 2 ocean games. Miami leads this 3-2. But the bottom line here, Landis, is we're trying to find games to lean into the ridiculousness of realignment and the fact that we do have conference teams who are 2,800 or 3,000 miles apart from each other.
Yeah, and like, I would say probably different campus ideologies between Cal and Miami.
Fair.
Which, could be fun.
You tiptoed right into that. Campus ideologies. Too good. UCLA, Michigan State. The series is tied 3-3. They played in 3 Rose Bowls. That's tied for the 4th most frequent Rose Bowl matchup. They played after the 53, 55, and 65 seasons. Michigan State won the first 2. UCLA won the 3rd. And then in 1965, they played in the regular season and the first game of the year in East Lansing. And Michigan State won. And then going into the Rose Bowl at the end of the 65 season, Michigan State was undefeated #1 and UCLA was 8-2. Michigan State was a 2-touchdown favorite and UCLA won 14-12. So this is one of those where like Michigan State kind of still claims that national title because they were ranked #1 before the bowl season, which plenty of teams do. They're only meeting since the 1965 season when they played twice. They played a home and home in 73 and 74. UCLA at Michigan State this year, though, on October 11th. And then Michigan State at UCLA next year. Again, this is a little bit seize on some Rose Bowl history, but UCLA in a Rose Bowl kept Michigan State, #1 Michigan State as a huge favorite from finishing in like an undefeated season. So you have a precipitating incident, and now weirdly they're in the same conference. And Michigan State, Michigan, obviously, USC, UCLA, obviously, but like who's the second rival for these two teams? That's where I think you have an opportunity here to lean into a little something.
Did you consider Michigan State USC for the Spartan Trojan thing?
Oh,
play for a horse or a
statue
of Orlando Bloom, maybe if you want to. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, because they both have those brushes on their heads, right?
They have that. Yeah, yeah. They do have that. Plus, I don't know if the Spartans were involved in the Trojan War or not. I know Greeks were, but there are more Greeks than just the Spartans.
And then like the precipitating incident is like thousands of years ago.
Yeah.
It wasn't like the 1965 Rose Bowl. It was like centuries ago. I could be into it. Yeah. Like that's what we're looking for. Don't you think the Big Ten office should be having discussions like this?
Yeah, because I bet they both. I know for a fact that Michigan State plays clips from like the 300 movie in their stadium, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. The Trojans did lose, so I don't know if USC is playing clips from Troy in their stadium or not. But they could.
Yeah. I mean, if they played that game on a regular basis and every game they pulled a giant wooden horse onto the field, people would be into that.
Yeah.
And then what do? Did they set the horse on fire? What do they do with the horse? People jump out of the horse like a cake?
People jumped out. There are people, there are people hidden inside the horse. Yeah.
Yeah. But I do think in a world where conferences have so little to do with geography, I think we all owe it to ourselves. The people who run the sport owe it to themselves to try to find ways. And like it's one of those things where Michigan State and Penn State, when Penn State joined the Big Ten, and they were trying to like find that rivalry at the end of the year, and they came up with the land grant trophy, and everybody made fun of it, right? Yeah. Because it's like, well, everyone plays their rival the last week, but Penn State's biggest rival is Ohio State. Michigan State's biggest rival is Michigan, and Ohio State and Michigan are playing each other. So let's have Penn State and Michigan play each other. And like, what do they have in common? They both have state in the name. So they're land grant state schools. Let's make a trophy around that. That's a little forced. And some of these things we're suggesting are a little forced too. But I'm sure we've all at various times made fun of the land grant trophy. But actually, maybe we should more admire the effort, because adding meaning to regular season games is good. I think it's good. Yes?
I think it's good. Just don't make an ugly trophy. Yeah. If the trophy wasn't ugly, we wouldn't laugh about it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Last one's Ohio State, Georgia. And this is just like, are these going to be the two best programs in college football for the next 10 years? Mm-hmm. And they've played twice. The Citrus Bowl to end the 92 season, and then the college football playoff semifinal in 2022, which was a banger. They are scheduled to play each other in 2030 and 2031. I hope that series stays on the schedule. 2030 in Athens, 2031 in Columbus. They had a series planned for 2020 and 2021 that Ohio State canceled in 2012. And then in 2019, they agreed to this 30-31 series. Georgia leads 2-0. This is just good ball. This would potentially mirror Clemson, Alabama in that 4-year period, where they were the two best teams in the sport and they were just playing each other with national title, or in the actual national title game, at least national title implications constantly. That could happen with these two teams. Yes?
Yeah, it could. I'm also interested to see whether or not the Ohio State-Texas series, which begins this year, has any postseason ramifications that might spook either of these teams off of playing each other in 2030. It's a long time from now, but we know that's the fear.
I hate that fear, but as we talked about earlier, what happened with Michigan and Ohio State and playing nobody and it being fine adds to that fear as well. And so, to me, there's a part of it, especially in where we're not yet at, 4 guaranteed playoff spots for a team in the Big Ten or a team in the SEC. And because it's like, if we're having the schedule strength conversation, and on one hand, the SEC argues schedule strength while ignoring the fact that they're supposedly difficult schedules. Their teams are losing in those schedules, but they're arguing 9-3 schedule strength. Well, guess what Ohio State, Texas does for you? Schedule strength. Ohio State, Georgia is all about schedule strength. So that even if you lose, it's a good loss. You have a strong schedule. You'll win battles with teams with similar records because your schedule strength is so good. So it does confuse me sometimes when the SEC wants to argue schedule strength, but then wants to hide from it. Right? So does schedule strength matter or not? Like, shouldn't Texas, Ohio State help both teams in the end? Shouldn't Georgia, Ohio State help both teams in the end?
I think so. Yeah.
I don't know. Don't be overly spooked.
Up until somebody involved loses to Purdue or Vanderbilt. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway,
hey, what do you think of this is from Robert in the chat. What do you think of Michigan and Washington playing for a trophy that you can spin, and like when Washington wins, it's a W, when Michigan wins, it's an M?
Oh my God. Also, both states, great apples. That's taken. So you can't go that way. So, but the WM trophy, our viewers are smarter than we are. That's why they're here. That's why we like when they're here. That's why we do this show live, so that they can be smarter. I've been thinking about these rivalries for 15 days, and I did not come up with spin the wheel WM, but that is banger. And Horn Dog, that goes up on the wall. The Horn Dog trophy. I don't like using AI. I think it uses up, like the servers use up a lot of water. And also I hate robots. People know that I hate robots. I don't like using AI. I do not flippantly use AI. I do not flippantly use GPT to be like, hey, like make me a picture, right? I think that is leading to our doom and the inevitable robot revolution if we make that too much of an easy part of our lives, right? But man, do I want to ask ChatGPT for a Horn Dog trophy. Oh, man. Oh, man.
There's a lot of possibilities of what that trophy could look like.
That might be the one I give myself. I don't normally do this, but I apologize in advance. Can you show me what the Horn Dog trophy would look like? Because I can picture the spinning W&M. I cannot picture the Horn Dog trophy. And I'm a little worried about, in that trophy, what might be happening to the Bulldog. So we have to tread gently here. You want to do a little Ask KOTN with our educated, dedicated, loyal Northern College football viewers and listeners?
Let's do it.
We'll do that next on Kings of the North. Doug Lesmerises and Bill Landis back on Kings of the North. Enjoying rivalry week here. If you guys are enjoying it, give us a thumb, subscribe, give us a review, tell a friend. We love the audience, Bill, and we're going to get into some of our comments and questions. But we're having a great time with the audience so far today already.
We are, really good feedback.
Rivalry stuff, some football things, but a pronunciation thing to start. This is from Bob from Mason. My comment is specifically for Doug, who is very big on enunciation and precise pronunciation. That guy's good at pronunciation. Doug, can you please stop pronouncing it coordinator? They are coordinating the offense defense, like as pronounced in hand-eye coordination. They are coordinators, not coordinators. What do you think of that? Do I need to hit the co instead of the ca? It's a little bit like a nuclear here, right? With my coordinator.
I could not imagine having a strong opinion on how you pronounce the word coordinator. So it's never hit my ears in a way that I thought, like, he's not saying that correctly. So I don't know. Maybe.
Okay. I am attuned. I try to be attuned to pronunciations, less so with coordinator, but I'm here for all of it. We're here for all of it. Thank you for the note, Bob. We're here for all of it. But we try to be very attuned to the pronunciation of players' names. And so I do want to, and this is a thing that we realize is part of this show, and we don't want to hide from it. And we want to confront it when people feel like they are feeling it on the show. This is not from Ask KOTN. It is a first comment on the YouTube channel from the Ohio State Oregon show. It's from JMiles003. I love the channel, but it is clear this is an Ohio State heavy episode. The mispronunciations of the Oregon player's name, and whenever there is uncertainty from Ohio State, then they give Oregon a slight edge. This should be titled, "We cover Ohio State close, and we are wondering out loud if Oregon can surprise us like last year if the teams played." Continuing on this, he disagreed with, I think we gave the coaching battle to Ryan Day in Ohio State instead of Dan Lanning in Oregon, disagreed on that. Wish there was an actual Oregon guy to push back on the Ohio State glazing. Ohio State deserves some of it, but this was an Ohio State love fest. Glazing's not a naughty word, is it? Can I say glazing on this show? I don't even know what that means.
You've already said it several times. So
it's like a donut, right? Can I say that? No? We can't escape this or ignore it. And not that we're trying to escape it, but you and I both came up covering Ohio State. And now we're doing a show where we cover 28 Northern teams, and we are both based in Columbus, Ohio. The idea, first pronouncing people's names. It can be difficult at times to double check that we are saying players' names the right way, because some online media guides, Bill, from schools have the phonetic pronunciation for a player. As you noted, some schools actually have the player or the sports information director that you click and you can hear an audio clip of them saying the players' names, which is the best way to do this. If a team does not have that in its online guide, I find myself searching videos, trying to find someone say a player's name. But if especially it's a younger player who has not started yet, a lot of times, even if they've spoken in a news conference setting, nobody will say the player's last name. They don't start off the news conference by saying, here's this player, and here's how you say his name. I try to find highlight clips. Sometimes you can hear the actual television commentators on the broadcast, especially if it's a blowout and it's a backup guy doing something. You can hear them trying to avoid saying the player's name at times, as if they, the TV guys, are unsure of how to say it. This is a very important thing to do, to say somebody's name correctly. And it makes me sick if we say someone's name wrong. But it can be difficult to make sure that you are saying it correctly sometimes.
Yeah, it can be. I think it's incredibly important too. I think you and I both try our best to figure out exactly the right way to say guys' names, but even then, from time to time you're left to guess, and sometimes the guess is going to be wrong, unfortunately.
Yes,
I guess I would say, if anyone's ever listening to the show and we're talking about your team and we say a name wrong, tell us how to say it. Because if we're saying it wrong, it's because your team doesn't provide a resource to tell us how to say it the right way. So
right.
If the fans can do it, that'd be great.
And we were talking about, we don't want to be myopic about the idea that you and I used to write about college football for a living, and now we talk about college football for a living. But there has been a shift, at least to some degree, that there is more talking about college football. There is still plenty of writing, but that idea, you used to just have to know how to spell a person's name. And now you need to know how to say it. And so for the sports information directors who acknowledge that and get out ahead of that and say, this is how to say this guy's name, awesome. Thank you in advance for that. But it is somebody that I think that something that every sports information director should be thinking about, especially in a world where not only to be talked about on a podcast, but for NIL or other promotional opportunities, saying someone's name correctly really matters.
I think it does. It always, we were talking about this before the show. Like, there have been times where I've heard James Franklin say Drew Aller's name wrong. Like, I think James Franklin went through the first 2 years of Drew Aller's tenure at Penn State saying his name the wrong way. So, if the coach is saying it, then, like, I don't know, sometimes it's hard for us to get it 100% right all the time. So, but we strive to.
Yeah, and it's no excuse. If we're wrong, please tell us, and we should get everyone right. The second part of this is, we certainly do not want to have an Ohio State bias. We obviously still have a lot of Ohio State fans in this audience. We love the fact that a lot of Ohio State fans are here. We also love the fact that a lot of fans here are not Ohio State fans. We can't escape our past. We're not trying to escape our past. I've always said, in the idea of doing a Northern College football show, where else would you start it from but Columbus, Ohio, based on the last 25 years? Paul Feinbaum started off talking about Alabama. That made sense. Then you expand. Like, should this show emanate from State College or Ann Arbor or Eugene or Minneapolis? Or, I mean, I guess it could, but it makes sense to me that it starts from here. But I am always curious, Bill, for people who either think we are too much Ohio State in topic selection, too pro-Ohio State in our analysis, maybe perhaps too anti-Ohio State in our analysis, that we're not, whatever. I'm always, I don't want to say on alert, but I'm always curious for any discussion around that because we know where we came from. And I do find it to be, everybody comes from somewhere. And I also find it that you and I both, before we got to this, were on the ground beat reporters for a single team for a very long time. There are some people who do this job that never did that. I find that grounding very helpful. I think the way we approach this show is grounded in that idea. It's grounded in research, is grounded in facts, is grounded. I think you have to have, probably it helps to have a years-long basis in facts first before you get into the opinion business. So I love the fact that we came up that way and we came up covering a team that was really good and really important. But it's part of what the show is. And if anybody ever has comments about it, I want to hear it either way as it relates to the Buckeyes and this Northern show.
Sure. I like to check it. Because I'm cognizant of it too, right? I think it's good to have that checked. And there will be times where I agree and times where I disagree. And I have no doubt I don't do it. I'll speak for myself. Like, I don't do it intentionally, but I know when I talk about Ohio State that I probably do so more sort of confidently and I don't know, just more like absolute terms because I know that team and program very well and better than at the 27 other teams that we talk about. I'm trying to play catch up with everybody else, but my institutional knowledge is what it is. So I'm sure that comes across sometimes, but it's not. I guess the only thing I can say is like we try to balance it, and whenever people think it might be out of whack, please tell us, and we'll try to recalibrate.
Yeah. But again, we appreciate the checks. We always want the checks. This is from Merrick on Twitter that I grabbed, talking about rivalries. As a 90s kid and a Michigan fan, I grew up hating Notre Dame. The hate order was Ohio State, Notre Dame, then Michigan State. I'm a little surprised that the Michigan-Notre Dame rivalry wasn't mentioned on your rivalry show in terms of rivalries that need to come back. This is really interesting, and this is, again, where prioritizing that for Michigan, you have two protected rivalries in the Big Ten. They're playing Oklahoma, for instance, in a non-conference home and home starting this year. When you think about Notre Dame playing Navy every year, they just scheduled the series with Clemson. They're still playing USC. They still play Stanford a lot of the time. We think that Purdue, Notre Dame, because of geography and being near each other in the state of Indiana, Michigan, Notre Dame is really interesting, Bill, but on the priority list, I just think it's hard to talk about a rivalry, even if it's great, and Michigan, Notre Dame is. If it's the third or fourth rivalry for a team, I sort of didn't even consider it in the discussion because how many rivals can you have until we get to my radical idea about college football? But like that's the hard part about that, right? I don't want to be dismissive of Notre Dame, Michigan, but it just feels like, man, at some point, are you going to have 4 teams that you play every year that a third of your schedule's taken up? That's what Iowa's facing right now. Iowa has 3 Big Ten regulars and Iowa State. 4 of their games are the same game every year. And I think that might be great for Iowa fans, but Scott Docterman was saying maybe Iowa fans could use a break from Iowa State. Like, is that great or is that too much? I think Michigan, Notre Dame will get into a situation like that.
Yeah, and it's no doubt generational too. Like I see John saying, like, is growing up in the 90s, he has Notre Dame ahead of Michigan State, and there are, I would imagine, Michigan fans who didn't really get deep into their fandom until the 2000s or later. Michigan Notre Dame played still in their lifetime, but maybe it wasn't quite the same thing. And Michigan State was better too. So I don't know. Michigan Notre Dame is weird for me. I'm not exactly sure how to kind of rank that in my mind. I know they haven't played since 18 or 19 or something like that, right? And I don't think have anything in the next couple of years. So and haven't played in a while. So I don't know. I guess I for a game like that, I guess I would take my cue from the teams themselves. If they're not prioritizing, like a team like Notre Dame, especially, that's not really afraid to go play anybody. If they're not prioritizing playing the game, then I would not consider that a rivalry of the same sort of esteem as the other ones we're talking about for Michigan.
Another rivalry one from Ben, who is in the YouTube chat, and I can see him saying, I sent this in an email, and I have it, Ben. I have it right here, brother.
All right.
Nebraska. I wanted to mention a couple things regarding Nebraska rivalries you missed, and also a couple comments from Wednesday's episode. This I thought, was a great way of phrasing this and characterizing this. Nebraska has traditionally two types of rivalries: a rivalry of mutual respect and a rivalry of disdain. How good are those categories?
I like that. Yeah.
Rivalry of mutual respect, Ben said Oklahoma. Rivalry of disdain, Colorado, Missouri. Since the move to the Big Ten, those rivalries have been played much less frequently, but need to be protected. Also, since the move, Iowa has become a rivalry of disdain, and they think that USC would make a good rivalry of mutual respect within the Big Ten. So Ben is kind of like saying, hey, what about Nebraska-USC as something new here? Also from Ben, you listed Nebraska-Colorado as a maybe rivalry. I can assure you that Nebraska-Colorado fans both consider it a significant rivalry that we wish was played more. And then Nebraska-Oklahoma, I cannot believe you didn't even mention Nebraska-Oklahoma as a college football rivalry. It was the de facto Big 8 conference championship game for decades. I think a scheduled agreement where Oklahoma alternates with Nebraska and Oklahoma State would be ideal. So Ben gets into some other things like, I like trying to find solutions there. To me, this is again where it gets difficult. Okay, what does Oklahoma has to play? Well, they have to play Red River against Texas. That's in the conference. Okay. I think to me, Bedlam would come ahead of Nebraska, that this is an in-state rivalry. And I give a little nod to in-state sometimes and stuff like this. That Bedlam's in danger. Their number one non-conference priority to me should be Bedlam. So that's why it's like, okay, so now Oklahoma has an in-conference and an out-of-conference, and now we're going to talk about Oklahoma, Nebraska. That's why I didn't do that. Colorado, we talked about Colorado State. They're playing 6 out of 10. That's a good solution. That's an in-state rivalry. We're talking about, should Colorado BYU be something in conference? Now we're also going to get to Colorado, Nebraska. I'm not being dismissive. I'm just saying at some point you run out of room. And I didn't really want to have any team where we're talking about, well, this is your third or fourth rivalry, but it's a must. But Ben's getting at something here, right? And I do think, not that you would triangle Oklahoma State, and Nebraska, but if Oklahoma wants to say, we don't want to do Bedlam every year, but we'll prioritize it, and in a 10-year period, we'll play Nebraska 5 times and Oklahoma State 5 times, Ben, you oohed at that. Ben could be onto something.
Yeah, I like every other year for that. I that's a good idea, actually. And I really like Nebraska USC too.
Yeah.
Because even whatever you think of those two programs in their current state, like it's a helmet game for sure. So yeah, I don't know if that is a notch below. That's like something new that you're maybe trying to kickstart, but I could see wanting to put that in a situation where you're playing that, I don't know, 4 times a decade, 5 times a decade, something like that. But I do like the every other year workaround for Bedlam, and then squeezing in Nebraska, Oklahoma too.
I think Ben might have been the one who brought up USC Michigan State. I would like to see USC Michigan State become a trophy game. Trojans versus Spartans. Call it the Iliad Cup and have the trophy be a Trojan horse. Imagine the merch. So love that. This is from Zach. Was listening to the rivalry pod from Monday, and Doug mentioned he was trying to think of a curse word that rhymes with Clemson. Well, I went to South Carolina, Zach says. We're not that creative. After every kickoff and touchdown, regardless of who we are playing, we yell, fight, win, kick a word, F word Clemson. Hate runs deep here.
Like that.
So if you can't rhyme, swear.
The F word rhymes with everything.
That's true. That's true. And Zach says that the real USC, South Carolina. So we love, I like it when we have like northern folks who care, but also have a little southern information there. Colin, great loyal listener. Good question here. Is the game, Ohio State, Michigan, the only rivalry truly affected by the expanded playoff? The game is the only rivalry where one or both teams has been in the national championship contention almost every year since 2000. That, coupled with the fact that it's the last game of the season, made it a de facto playoff game every year. It was a rivalry game that doubled as an annual elimination game. Now it's no longer an elimination game, and thus it has slightly less meaning. Other rivalries either weren't at the end of the year or the stakes weren't always as high. Thus, they are the same with the expanded playoff. The game is the only rivalry that's changed. This is good for the overall sport. So Colin thinks it's worth it. Again, being around Ohio State a lot, I think a lot of the expanded playoff discussion for Ohio State and Michigan fans centered on this. but I think the idea that this is unique, that most are not like this, I think is also an interesting admission, because I'm clearly, I wasn't there necessarily the whole time at the beginning. I'm clearly in favor of the expanded playoff now. And then to me, the rivalry, when your rivalry has hate and stakes, we want to beat you no matter what. Ohio State or Michigan fans will say, I don't care if you're 11-0 or 0-11, we want to beat you at the end of the year. It doesn't matter if it's a playoff elimination game, right? That certainly exists in Ohio State, Michigan. But it's a bonus if it is a playoff elimination game. So, but again, like is Auburn, Alabama, the last 20 years, has it been like that? No, Auburn hasn't been at that
regularly.
level.
No, there's been a couple Iron Bowls with that, but not all the time. Yeah.
Like is Notre Dame USC at that point? No. Like do you agree with the idea, Bill, that perhaps it's the rivalry that has suffered the most in the expanded playoff because it's the rivalry where the teams were most often fighting to win a national championship when they played in the last game of the regular season?
Yeah, it was like the sort of perfect marriage of like emotion and sort of real world, at least in terms of the sport, sort of ramifications. And one of those is lessened now. So how could it not be impacted? I don't know. You could go back maybe historically at the course of college football and find windows maybe where there were other rivalries for a period of time who carried those kind of stakes and emotions. But I would agree. I don't think anything else going right now would rise to that level. But I also hesitate. Maybe it's worse. I don't know. I hesitate to use the word worse when talking about it, because it's just different.
It's different.
I don't know that means it's bad. I don't want to be Pollyanna about it either. So like I understand that for some people, like both matter tremendously. Both sides of what makes that rivalry what it is matter tremendously. And now one is just like it's still there, but it's not going to always be there, kind of thing. I don't want to be dismissive of that either, but for me, it was always like the emotions of that game were always what's kind of stuck out to me first. It's like someone who didn't grow up in it and then experienced it for the first time and then got to cover whatever I've covered 10 of them. But the stakes matter. Yeah. When it's like 1 versus 2 or 2 versus 3 and it goes double overtime, like how can that not enhance the experience? And now you don't quite have that.
Some people really like the punitive nature of these kind of things. And that idea that Michigan last year, in any other situation other than the 12-team playoff last year, Michigan not only would have beaten Ohio State, they would have ruined Ohio State's season.
Mm-hmm.
And instead, they beat Ohio State, and Ohio State won the national title. So that is something, right? But to me, it's how much is a season being, and this sounds Pollyanna, how much is a season being ruined really part of a rivalry? And they're like, that's the whole thing, idiot.
Yeah, right.
That's the whole thing. No matter what, maybe like last year was a perfect encapsulation of that. The Michigan season coming off a national championship wasn't what Michigan fans wanted. But Ohio State was having that season, and Michigan ruined it. And then it wasn't ruined. And so if you say like, that's the whole thing, we hate you and we want to make you miserable. So we still hate each other, but we can't make you as miserable as we used to make you. Mm-hmm. That is something. But I think the familiarity, how good the programs are, the great history, I think there's still so much there that I think it's impossible to argue that it's not lessened. But I certainly think any argument of like it doesn't matter is not true. And even like when Ryan Day once was like, what if you play Ohio State, Michigan back-to-back weeks and you're going to play, you're both guaranteed to play in the Big Ten championship again the next week. What if you rest all your guys for the Ohio State, Michigan regular season game? And it was like, okay. Well, the answer to that is that would never happen because it's Ohio State, Michigan. And so like, that's the kind of thing I think that's still true. It's whenever they play, it's still Ohio State, Michigan, and people are going to care the maximum. And the idea of, well, we'll just play our backups against Michigan so we can get ready for the rematch in a week. I just don't think that to me is dismissive of the rivalry in a way that's not real.
Yeah. And I think you've said this before, like for those, 3.5, 4 hours, it'll feel the same, I think, right?
Right.
It's just that the emotions you feel afterward are affected differently now because of the way college football is structured. But I don't know that people are going to be sitting in the shoe or in Michigan Stadium like, I just hope everyone has fun. Kind of thing, right?
If there were an Ohio State and Michigan fan sitting next to each other during the game last year, I don't think in the third quarter an Ohio State fan turned to the Michigan fan and said, that doesn't matter. We're going to make the playoff anyway.
Yeah.
Or Michigan fan said, it doesn't matter. You're going to make the playoff anyway. Who cares what happens in this game? And that is, like you said, for the 4 hours, nobody cares about context in the midst of it.
Yeah.
In the midst of it, you just care about the hate. So, right. But it's a very well said point by Colin. And I think it's true. I think in the end, to Colin's point, it's worth it because it's hard to get something without giving something up, and giving up 10 or 15% of the Ohio State Michigan rivalry, I think is worth it for what it means to the entire sport. Okay. That's it for our rivalry talk, but I do have some other football things I want to talk about. This is from Jesse. He's talking about the conversation that we had with Stephen Godfrey the other day. His point is this: there are simply more good players now, thanks to expanded access to high-level development. That's reshaping the talent curve and softening the elite advantage. The reasons people give for the new competitive balance are, 1, the transfer portal, and 2, NIL. Great, but there might be another really important thing going on: a larger talent pool as a result of expanded access to rigorous high school development. And he says, nobody talks about this. Everyone just assumes the total number of really good players stays constant forever, that there is just like a natural hierarchy that has nothing to do with access to this development. So if there was a more limited pool, and when the pool is limited, the South and the SEC get more of them. But when you expand the pool, there is more to go around. It's not necessarily that the North has to steal talent from the South. It's just there's more out there. It's quite an interesting idea from Jesse, is it not?
It is an interesting idea. I really think he's on to something, and I will fully admit, like, I never really thought about it in those terms, but it makes sense if you just sort of consider anecdotally, like, there are more high school football coaches for whom that's their full-time job, right, than there probably were 30 years ago. So maybe there's better coaching happening. There are far more guys specializing. There's year-round training that didn't exist to the same extent 20, 30 years ago. I was looking at some of the participation numbers, and I guess football participation is on the rise. It's like rebounding to pre-COVID numbers. I guess there was a dip around 2020, and it's rebounding and has gone up, I think, the last couple of years. I also looked at like 24/7 sports. I first wanted to think like sort of like my own personal experience, and I thought about when I was in high school. So I went to high school in Philadelphia. The year I graduated high school, 2006, I looked into 24/7 sports composite. There was not a single player from the Philadelphia Catholic League or Public League in the 24/7 sports database who had signed with an FBS program. And in 2025, there were 15.
Wow.
And so that's like more good players in an area that doesn't typically like have them a lot. And then I also looked at 4-star prospects in 2015 in the 24/7 sports composite. There were 378. And in 2025, there were 476. So almost 100 more. And I don't even know what it was for 3 stars because I didn't have an hour to scroll through everything because there's like 1,000 something 3 stars. But I absolutely think Jesse's onto something with there are more good high school football players than there used to be. And I think potentially a lot more.
And it may apply generally and also apply specifically to quarterback. And quarterback is such an important position, but I just think it's more likely to have a competent guy who can run your show. And then I think another part of it is offensive line is a little bit of a hit or miss, a little bit of a dice roll in recruiting anyway. And so that's a position where you can spread out the talent, maybe even not by design, right? Because development really matters. And now we're talking about NIL and portal again, you get some up transfers, but also you just find some kids in recruiting but I do think a larger pool is something that we haven't heard a lot of a discussion about. I think Jesse is very well said with that point. Yeah. Joel, talking about our Ohio State-Oregon breakdown, and I love, if you watched a KOTN showdown and thought like, well, that was wrong, ask KOTN@gmail.com. Yeah. We love it. I understand needing to make the Ohio State versus Oregon head-to-head close, and giving Oregon the front seven made that happen. You gave Ohio State linebacker and Oregon the edge spot, which I understand. Is it really your professional opinion that Oregon's defensive tackle room is better than Ohio State's? Because that breaks my brain. Unless you are banking on Bear Alexander being great, I would bet my house that Ohio State's front seven is better than Oregon's. So I rewatched that. What we said in the end was we gave linebacker to Ohio State, as Jesse said. We gave edge to Oregon, and we said defensive tackle was close. And then you said you like Ohio State's top 2 defensive tackles better. But then we overall gave the front 7 advantage to Oregon. I think mainly in part because we think Oregon's advantage at edge is the biggest advantage. That Tuioti and Uiagalelei, like those are like, and they have like a young guy on the way up that was enough that even if you did give tackle to Ohio State and linebacker to Ohio State, the overall edge was still to Oregon. But whose tackles in the end? You did say you think Ohio State's top 2 tackles are the 2 best tackles there. We're not banking on Bear Alexander.
I'm not banking on Bear Alexander. No.
Yes.
No, I think Ohio State's 2 tackles are better. I wonder about the tackle depth, and maybe I'm too worried about it, honestly, because.
But they like to play 6. They've always liked to play 5 or 6, right?
Yeah, but then Ohio State. It's not even a question. It's a question of, can you get to the postseason with your best guys ready to play every single meaningful snap? So do you have the playable depth to play over the first 12 games of the season? And I wonder if Ohio State does, just specifically at defensive tackle. So that's like a concern for me. But I don't know. I don't think like Oregon's especially deep at defensive tackle either. I just think that Oregon is better at edge, and I actually think linebacker's pretty close. Even if you're like it's different flavors of linebacker play, but I think linebacker's close between the 2.
The other thing that I think is difficult in the offseason is fans are usually very familiar with their own young guys on the rise who maybe haven't done a ton, but you are not familiar with opposing teams' young guys on the rise. Sure. So like Aiden Breland is a 5-star second-year defensive tackle for Oregon who's a guy on the rise that's similar to Edric Houston being a guy on the rise. But if that's not your team, you might be like, well, I don't know, like that guy. And we don't expect you to know that. But whatever you're expecting of young Ohio State defensive tackles who don't have a ton of snaps yet, I think Oregon has some of those young defensive tackles who don't have a ton of snaps who you can expect to be good, right? And that is a very difficult thing to analyze in the offseason, because why would anyone be analyzing a different team's former backups who are guys on the rise? Because you have things to do in your life. So anyway.
You're on vacation with your family having a good time. Yeah.
So we're not disagreeing with that, but I just wanted to note like that, hey, like we like it when you hear or see something in a showdown and maybe want to push back against it. This is our last one we'll do on this from Chris. Another great point. Will coaches try to negotiate the money allocated to football in future hiring negotiations? This is the revenue share that schools can do starting like Tuesday, right? July 1st is when you can do this. $20.5 million that you can directly give to your athletes, but you have to figure out who you're giving it to. And every school can do it differently. The point that Chris is making, for example, let's say Kentucky divides its money 50% of the rev share of the $20.5 million to men's basketball players, 25% to football players, 15% to women's basketball, and 10% to baseball. Okay, that gets your 100%. Let's say they want to hire Curt Cignetti from Indiana, and Curt Cignetti says, okay, but you've got to get football up to 55% of your rev share allocation. That you will use. Could coaches use this? Because this is different than, hey, like Curt Cignetti, Indiana got its NIL in shape when they hired Curt Cignetti, and that was a big deal. So that's an outside thing. This is an inside decision-making thing, and we've seen this before. Right? Mark Stoops, the Kentucky football coach, and John Calipari, the Kentucky basketball coach, were going at each other a little bit once upon a time. This idea that when you are making choices in your athletic department and you have to take away from one to give to the other, you can't just add. It's only 100%. But will coaches you're trying to hire leverage this? But then what's that going to do to the programs that you're taking away from? This is a fascinating thing to think about. I have not heard a ton of people discuss this. Good job by Chris.
I think coaches will leverage it. Yeah. And I think it actually has potential to get kind of ugly in some places too.
Yes.
When coaches have these conversations, because before, like the Calipari, Stoops is a good example. They're like going back and forth about a number that at least to us is like sort of nebulous, right? Like they might know it, but we don't know. But now we know it's $20.5 million. Where's it going? It's out there for everybody to sort of understand. I do like. Will it be an issue? I don't know. I guess I could see it being an issue that keeps a coach from taking a job. Yeah, depending on where the school is. And Kentucky's a great example. Also, don't float out hypotheticals where Indiana loses 6 to Kentucky. We don't like that.
Yeah. By the way, Kentucky can cram it. Because there's no I think there have been battles before over the perception of priorities. Now there's no perception. This is how we're dividing up rev share. You're making clear what your priorities are. And I actually think schools having to decide that. And maybe you think, okay, like we haven't been that super competitive in football. We're not going to give up. It's football. But if we take 15% away from football and try to put it into another sport, maybe we can win a conference title there or a national championship there. I find that super interesting. That idea of, and people will do it differently. You give a little. And the idea of like, well, let's be good at everything. It's like, okay, well, you can try to be good at everything, but there still is a formula that you must apply. So I think it has a chance to people make hard choices that will affect on the field and on the court outcomes in a really interesting way.
I think it will. Yeah, it's a great question because I had not seen anyone talking about it.
I'd say a tremendous question. All right, so before we get to Whatcha, here's the thing that have I radically changed my view of everything? We have been talking a lot about rivalries, and we're talking about who you should play, who you want to play, and that making meaningful regular season games is such an important part of modern college football. It should be, at least. We think it should be, yes. Prioritize important regular season games, right? In conference or out of conference. We think conference affiliation has much less to do with this kind of thing than it used to. Yes?
Mm-hmm.
So what's the point of conferences? What if you are maybe beholden to playing conference games against teams that you don't really feel like you have a connection to, and it's preventing you from playing other teams that you maybe have more of a connection to? What if everybody was just independent and then you had 12 games to schedule who you really care about? And maybe there were associations. Maybe everybody, we have gone from, and I certainly was part of this in the past, Notre Dame's got to be in a conference. Notre Dame's got to be in a conference. What if Notre Dame's on the exact right thing? We're going to have an affiliation with a group of teams where we'll play 5 of them a year. But then we're going to mix that up. And then otherwise, we'll play whoever we want. Teams that matter to us historically, geographically, interesting teams that are new and fun to play. Why shouldn't everybody do that? And that way, Michigan could play Notre Dame and could play Oklahoma. And maybe there's an agreement where this collection of Big Ten teams decides we're all going to play some group of each other at least 5 times a year, but you can make those games on your own. I'm not even sure the conference office is involved in that. But the more we talked about rivalries, Landis, the less I cared about conferences. There are times when it feels like our rivalry discussion, conferences get in the way of who you really want to play. And so what is the point of a conference other than a TV agreement? But you should not be a conference just because it's easier to make a TV deal. Then just have a TV partnership. Because how much do teams really care about winning a conference trophy? And right now, if you win the Big 12, are you excited to win a Big 12 trophy? Or are you excited because it comes with an automatic playoff berth? So if you're excited about the playoff berth, then you don't have to be in a conference. And the teams that are most likely to win conference championships, I think care about conference championships the least. How much does Oregon care that it won the Big Ten championship last year? Has that been discussed at all about Oregon since it happened? Well, they won the Big Ten. They hoisted a trophy. Does anyone care about that? So if you don't care about winning the trophy and you find the scheduling more of a nuisance, what are we doing? Should everybody be independent?
I don't know how you would figure out the TV stuff if everybody was independent.
But is it not ridiculous to have it be like, well, the TV deals, right? Like that feels like a backwards thinking that the TV deals are the only thing that matter for conference affiliation anymore. You're just a TV partnership.
I mean, that is what kind of all they are. And I guess in the Big Ten's instance, they'll remind you a research consortium. I don't know. Like I think part of it is like cost, right? You position yourself in a group of teams that are somewhat closer to you, then you're not flying 2,000 miles for every road game you play. I don't know. But I think there's some fan bases who like winning conference championships too. Like,
but those fan bases, do their teams ever win conference championships? I think the ones who
Arizona
like it the
State
most never win them.
You think Arizona State
but
likes
do
having
they
the Big 12 championship trophy?
Or did they like making the playoff and being super relevant and having a bunch of people talk about them?
They like both, but then when they got
what do they like
eliminated,
more?
They had that to fall back on. I don't know. I think this is a little extreme because also if everyone's independent and left to like their own whims to make their own schedule, they're just going to load up with a bunch of BS and make sure they go 12-0.
But not if you're not rewarded by. I mean, like, but we
you
just
schedule
argued
just strong enough to get in, but not strong enough to be interesting.
But isn't that part of what? But part of that within a conference is what you're already required to do, because they're giving you games against like, okay, well, these teams aren't that good, but you've got to play them.
Penn State would never play Ohio State again if Penn State could do whatever the hell it wanted to do with its own schedule.
Oh, I don't think that's true.
Because then it would play rarely.
Oh, for real? But then who do they play that matters? You're just trying to go 12-0 at all costs.
Like Syracuse and Temple and whatever, BC, play regional.
Oh, wow.
Go find a team that has a nice helmet but isn't very good. Yeah.
That's not my instinct. So you think so you were talking about before, like if and people have mentioned it's like a race to the bottom in non-conference scheduling, right? Like what's the point? Mm-hmm. So you're saying if there's no conferences, then the entire schedule is a race to the bottom.
I think so. Yeah.
Because I thought maybe it frees it up to be a race to what really matters. We're going to play the games that matter the most. Am I being too optimistic about how programs will go about it?
I think you're being a little too optimistic. Yeah.
But part of it is when previously to this week, when you thought about, hey, they're going to break off a top tier and it's not going to be conferences. There's going to be like these 28 teams in the top or whatever, like they're doing their thing, right? Or whatever. And that feels scary to me most of the time when I think about that you're just fundamentally changing what college football is. But if you're fundamentally changing that, and then Nebraska gets to play Oklahoma and Colorado and Iowa and Wisconsin and Minnesota, like whoever goes in the tier, that you want to schedule teams in the tier, but maybe you still schedule teams out of the tier, but conferences don't mean what they mean now. And Nebraska can focus on really getting, of course you're going to play a couple easy games, but if we're talking about how can Nebraska play Iowa and then also play Colorado and Oklahoma in the same year on a regular basis, how can that happen? What can happen if conferences don't exist?
The logistics of scheduling that for everybody would be nearly impossible too. If it's just a total free for all every season, nobody's locked into anything.
Okay. Does breaking off like the Super League concept, does that make you nervous? Because that concept has always made me nervous, but this discussion this week it's made me less nervous about it.
No, it doesn't make me terribly nervous. No,
okay.
Because I don't even know if the teams we'd want to see play each other. I think by and large are going to be sort of part of the pool anyway. Like it's not going to be a 14-team league super conference.
Yeah. And I don't want to be dismissive, and I'm not trying to be dismissive of any of the teams who would not be in that top tier of a super conference. But it's like I want everybody to be able to play meaningful games. And sometimes during this discussion, Bill, it's felt like conferences get in the way of meaningful games. They help in some ways, but they hurt in some ways. Yeah,
I think it can, but I think your free for all would be far more complicated.
Okay, maybe we'll free for all. Maybe that's a discussion for another day. Because we got to talk about food. Ready to talk about food? Mm-hmm. All right, we'll do that next on Kings of the North. Doug Lesmerises, Bill Landis. I do feel a little bit bad about that. Doug wants to blow up college football. Anyway, time for tacos. I'd say I didn't exactly mean to do it that way, but it affected my thinking. It affected my thinking, and in not in not an inherently terrible way. I think I have to workshop this a little bit more and come back to you.
I'd like you to sketch it out, please. Yeah.
Professor Landis says this idea feels unfinished. You're sending it back to me, and I'll try to bring it back to you at a future date.
Okay.
Yes. Okay.
Please.
Have a couple Whatcha comments. Brett G said, "Hey Bill, you said the other week you're a big fan of Parks and Rec in The Office." Brett wants to recommend Superstore. Do you ever watch Superstore?
I have not. No.
Just like Parks and Rec was created by one of the producers for The Office. So anyway, main cast is great. Superstore. It's about a store. So we like recommendations.
All right.
This is Elijah from Wilmington, Delaware. Important question to ask. When comparing a Crunch Wrap Supreme to a cheesy Gordita Crunch, does it matter which one I ate first? I ate the Gordita first and thought it was awesome and better than the Crunch Wrap, but I don't want to make conclusions if my research method was faulty. Should I switch the order of the two for tomorrow's lunch? When you are getting like more than one thing, this is a 45-minute discussion. What
I
order?
do? Yeah. Well, I think whichever one has the more distinct flavor should be in second. And in that case, I think it's the cheesy Gordita Crunch has the more distinct flavor.
More distinct.
So I would eat it second.
Is that if you're getting? Usually it is a Mexican food where this applies more often, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you decide what to eat first? More flavor second? Is that what you do?
It's not even more. It's just like dominant flavor. Like if you eat something that has a really dominant flavor, then whatever you eat after, that's going to taste like the thing you ate first time. Like you ate first.
Yes.
Like that's what you want to try to avoid.
Okay. I definitely eat the thing I like the most second and sort of make myself eat the other thing first. But then you're always in danger of what if you start to get full and now you only eat half of the thing you like the best. But I apply this. I do that a lot in life. It's like the thing, hold off, right? Like make yourself wait for what really matters. So
I think you also have to consider what all is in front of you, like has the longer shelf life. Like if you let if you're going to let something sit for 10 minutes before you get to it because you're eating something else, when you finally get to that thing you've been letting sit for 10 minutes, is it like demonstrably worse because it's just been sitting there getting soggy? Like that's pretty important too.
But if we're looking at this from a Taco Bell research perspective, is it our final conclusion that the order in which you eat things does affect the research?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well asked by Elijah then. Our guy Turkey Bass, always loyal here in the YouTube chat. And we like this. Again, I'm pondering what an entire like break off side content project of Whatcha would look like. And is it like, do you try to, in the first segment, talk to a producer or an actor or somebody who's made a show or a movie, right? I mean, I want to have the guy who wrote the Swearing Dogs movie on here at some point, right? Is that the first segment? And then the second segment is you try to get somebody from a fast food restaurant of how you decide what's going to be on the menu, or like this guy. I've been reading that for some reason, my social media algorithm is sending me a lot of stuff about the new CEO of Red Lobster and how he saved Red Lobster. And I'm like, let's that guy on, get him on the show. And then what you're thinking is like half an hour of like talking to a philosophy professor, right? Like that. I'm ready to do that show yesterday, Landis, if you're ready to do it as a break-off spin-off of KOTN.
I can do it. The new CEO of Red Lobster is only 36 years old.
I mean, like, you want to have him on too. I don't know if a college football show is going to get that guy, but Whatcha, if Whatcha is a spinoff, we might get him. But I do like when people say, like, my family watches or listens to Whatcha now, right? So Turkey Bass says, my wife started listening to the Wednesday show primarily because she enjoys some of the Whatcha segments. When you guys mentioned the lettuce dilemma, she got a little excited, more excited than she's ever been watching a sports show, and said I had to write in and tell you guys about our findings. Here it goes. Incredibly simple and impressive. Take your lettuce out of the bag when you get home and put it in a bowl or another bag with a sheet or two of paper towel. The towel absorbs the excess moisture that makes lettuce wilt, keeping the lettuce fresher a lot longer. We eat turkey sandwiches 4 to 5 times a week and always got frustrated that we were throwing out lettuce. We haven't tossed out bad lettuce in months. Look at that. Turkey Bass and his wife changing hearts and minds.
I like the Turkey Bass eats a turkey sandwich 4 times a week.
Yeah.
Does he eat a does he eat a bass sandwich the other 3 days?
He's in here. He can answer. All right. Bill Landis, what are you watching?
I mentioned before that I was watching Bosch, the series on Amazon, and I finished it. So then there's like a spin-off series, Bosch Legacy, that's only 3 seasons.
Oh, okay.
I thought Bosch was awesome, and I thought Bosch Legacy sucked. And it's like all the same people.
Oh, for real?
Yeah, it's basically all the same people. Yeah. Bosch Legacy is just like super rushed. And I actually thought that way about the last season of Bosch. Like the first 6 seasons are all 10 episodes, and the 7th season, I don't know why I didn't look into it, there's only 8 episodes, and I felt like things just sort of resolved themselves sort of too quickly and too conveniently.
Okay.
In a way that didn't quite make sense. And then Bosch Legacy is just like there's a whole lot of nonsense happening that just like would not happen in real life. But I actually think maybe the thing that I like least about Bosch Legacy compared to the original Bosch is like the music. Like you said, you read the books, right? You read the Michael Conley
I do read
books.
the books.
I'm assuming that like jazz and Bosch's love of jazz is a huge part of the series. Like I'm assuming that's from the books. But like in the series, and it's cool because on Amazon, it's like if there's a song that's playing on an Amazon Prime show, you're like, oh, I like that song. Jeff Bezos and his infinite wisdom allows you to like scroll down while you're still watching the show and like see what the song is. You can even buy it if you want to. But like I like jazz a little bit. And like I'm not a connoisseur of it. I'm not super knowledgeable in it. But like if there's a song playing on the series and I hear it's like, oh, I like that song. Let me like earmark it. I'll go back and listen to it later. I'll put it on my save song list kind of thing. And there was a lot of that throughout watching the initial Bosch series and like none of it in the new one because it felt like the new one was either using like royalty free music. I'm pretty sure the theme song was AI and it was awful. And like what real music they did use was just like people who weren't like newer stuff that wasn't was probably like very easy. Not to say that it was bad necessarily, but just wasn't the same vibes. And it never occurred to me like how important music could be to a television show. But I thought like the music in the Bosch series was like instrumental, not the part of the pun, to how good the series was. And the lack of that in the spinoff series like made it much worse. But I was surprised at the end of Bosch Legacy, Maggie Q shows up, and I guess she's getting her own. She's getting a spinoff. She's getting her own Michael Conley series.
Really? Oh, I like Maggie Q a lot.
Yeah.
She was in the Dedicated Survivor. What was it?
Yes, Designated Survivor. Yeah,
Designated Survivor. Yeah, really good.
She's playing. Was it Renee Ballard? Is that a character in the books?
Oh,
okay. It's like a detective.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, she's getting her own series.
Oh, she's excellent. Bosch is a little bit like Ron Swanson when he does like the secret saxophone thing. It's just like this hardened guy who loves saxophone, right? Yeah. So that's good. So I was in Chicago over the weekend and I wound up going to a couple comedy shows and then a dueling piano bar. And what I was watching was just like supremely, especially the dueling piano bar thing, just supremely talented people. That's like, I can't believe all the work and talent that went into you working in a dueling piano bar on a Monday night. It almost makes me like, I respect it so much, but it was just 4 singers. You've been to a dueling piano bar ever?
I have. Yeah.
How fun are they?
It's a good time. Yeah. I went for my birthday one year. Yeah.
Oh, so fun. So that like they all 4 people can sing. There's 4 people and they rotate. Sometimes they're together. Then people take breaks, but they all can play the piano, play the guitar, play the drums, and sing. And they all just switch parts constantly. When I went to a dueling piano bar 20 years ago, it was just a guy at a piano. Now it's like just creating a full band out of nothing. And I just think like, how good are you? And I'm paying you $5 to play Shut Up and Dance With Me on the piano. Like I should be paying you $500. What is this? And then the second part of that was we went to a bunch of comedy shows and there was like a comedy show where we're probably like in a 120 seat theater and there were like 15 people there. And then the headlining comic, who I think is not from Chicago and like came in for the show, had to stand up there and tell us jokes. And then it's like, are we not laughing enough? Or there's like that joke was kind of funny, but it wasn't super funny. It didn't bomb, but there's only 12 people here. Like, what are we supposed to do? And it was like, man, you are really working at your craft. You are a professional at this. And the audience is at 10% capacity. I'm not sure what to do with this. So it was just like a little bit of a knot in your stomach for like all the talent that talent plus work equals less than it should. And I sort of feel bad, but I don't know what to do about it other than consume it and try to laugh extra loud.
I probably would have. Yeah, I get secondhand embarrassed very easily, and not even say like you should be embarrassed for that person because they're just doing the thing they like to do and they're trying to get better at it. But I couldn't help but feel it. And if I were in that situation, I would leave. I would try to leave because I don't think I could. I don't think I could do it.
And like one of the guys then like really got in his own head about it, was like, I'm bombing. And I wanted to say like, you're not bombing. There's just 9 people here. There's only so much reaction we can give you. But I found what you just said, maybe not hilarious, but amusing. It was a well-crafted joke, but there's just a limit to like how much noise I can make right now, you know? So it was,
15 people aren't going to fill a room with laughter that's built for 200 people. Why were there so few people there? Just because was it a weeknight?
I was surprised. Yeah, I mean, we went on Saturday night and Sunday night, and it was just kind of like the one place we went like was not the big. It's a professional comedy club. It wasn't the biggest place in the world, but I was surprised there weren't more people. Then the second show was sort of like a bunch of different comedians, and I don't know. It's very. It's a grind, people, man.
Or were they just like local? Like,
I mean, it's one of those things where it's like they put in the person's bio. It's like has appeared on Stephen Colbert. You know, it's like they did a 5-minute set on TV one time, or they have like a Hulu special. So they're real comedians. They're not famous, but they've done stuff. And then it's like, why are there 15 people here? Why aren't there at least 70 people here? So tough biz. I respect it so much, but I wish there was more reward for some of those people who have immense talent and put in a ton of work to get where they are. All right, what are you eating?
I'm eating. It's like I said, it's drinking. The Chick-fil-A peach milkshake is back. It's the drink of the summer. I invite everyone to get out there and just go through the drive-thru. Don't have to get out of your car at top, but just have somebody hand you a delicious peach milkshake through your car window, and enjoy how it cools you down on a nice summer day. But the flavors are pretty good too. I don't love all of I actually don't like most of Chick-fil-A's milkshakes, but the peach one that's seasonal in the summer and the candy cane one that's seasonal around Christmas time are top notch.
I think maybe the winners of the Horn Dog Trophy should also be handed peach milkshakes as a delicious reward for their hard work on the football field. All right, so I ate pasta in a cone in Chicago. My daughter had gone there, and I was like, I was almost going to do a secondhand pasta cone thing on Whatcha, but this was probably the first thing where I've ever made a food decision based on Whatcha. I was like, we have to go to pasta cone because I got to do it for Whatcha. And I thought because there was a restaurant near me that was previously called Chicken Cone and was kind of putting buffalo chicken nuggets in a waffle cone. If you hear that food is in a cone, do you assume the cone is edible?
100%.
I made that assumption as well. That was not the case with this. So, Mike, we can show the photo of the initial cone. And again, we talk a lot about transport devices on this show, how you get the food to your mouth. So this is just spaghetti in a paper cone. And I'm not sure all this accomplished this, and it was very good pasta. But 2 things happened here. One is the pasta stayed burn your mouth hot the whole time because it's piled on itself within this cone, right? And then the second thing was the pasta was closer to my mouth all the time, and I got 4 spots of sauce on my shirt from splatter. And I don't know that it's worth it. And the thing that I'm intrigued here is they had a video running in this restaurant of 2 guys. It's like a promotional video for the pasta cone. 2 guys sitting in their car with a cone of pasta, eating pasta on the go, like not drinking it out of the cone or but like using a fork out of the cone. But it's kind of like, how do you make pasta a portable drive-through on-the-go car meal? And I guess the answer is put the pasta in a cone, but it did not really look doable to me. Does this look doable to you that like, oh yeah, I'd eat that while I'm driving?
No, this is off-putting. This is sad. I don't like this. I'm bothered. Just look at that guy. I'm bothered that the cone is not edible because I just don't understand what the point is. Shout out to Miss Rachel on the TV behind you too.
Yeah.
I don't get it. Why does it exist this way? I'm angry.
Now, to be fair, we never would have gone to this pasta place if they weren't serving pasta in a cone. So like, it got me. They sucked me in.
Door. Okay.
And it was good. I liked it. But the point, I can't find the point of it. So, because I cannot imagine eating it. Making food portable is great. And again, sometimes we've bashed devices that just have empty carbs and are trying to get the real food into your mouth. But I really thought I was going to eat pasta in a waffle cone. So the one that did not happen. I still enjoyed it, as you can tell from the photo, but I was a little disappointed.
What if it was like a hardened breadstick kind of thing? That's what they made.
Now you're talking. My God, your ideas on this show. My God, Landis, what are you doing here?
It seems like they don't want to do dishes.
Yeah. Because it's like, what would you like? Oh, like a taco salad. And what are you gonna do? Make the taco into a bowl? It's like, yeah, we are. What are you gonna do? Make the breadstick into a cone? It's like, yeah, we are. That's exactly what we're gonna do. You're a genius.
Yeah.
All right, what are you thinking about?
Just briefly mention at the top of the show that our home air conditioner is broken. So we had to sleep through it one night, and when the house was like super hot, and I think the real feel temperature that day was like 107. I don't want to hear ever again from the British about how 78 degrees is hot because you don't have air conditioning. Get out of my face. They're supposed to have a heat wave this week, I guess, where it's going to actually get hot, like be in the 90s. But when it's 78, I don't want to see anything from someone living in London about how unbearable it is to live in London because it's 78 degrees and you don't have air conditioning.
Yeah, I think we do have, what is it, like London's at the same latitude as like Juneau, Alaska or something, that like we have to, I think, recognize how unusual it is for the Brits to be hot. But also, I think a lot of us real Americans were sitting over here being like, you're sweating when it's 79, get bent.
Yes.
So I did forget to mention this earlier, Mike. I want to bring up the T-shirt. I believe it was Clay who sent this in on the Ask KOTN Gmail. This is a shirt, they said, I believe, like from the Wisconsin bookstore at the University of Wisconsin, that says Kings of the North. And then there's a badger on it. So it is a very good looking
font is very
shirt.
Derivative of a particular television show. They better be careful.
We just would say, if you want to sue somebody, this is where you start. Don't start with us. So, but we like the idea. I'm not sure Wisconsin that they are the Kings of the North, but it's a lovely shirt. And if we ever went down this road and, we're trying to have like different types of logos, and if we put a badger on a shirt that we made, we get sued, we get our pants sued off by Wisconsin. So we wouldn't do that. But like, we're vibing with this, are we not? And we're excited when we see Kings of the North, things like this out in the wild.
Yeah, I like it. I wonder too if it's an offshoot of, I know like the only time I've heard of this saying in the sports context other than our show is like the Bears and the Packers and the Vikings and the Lions talking about the NFC North. So obviously in Wisconsin that would matter.
Yeah. So we're excited by that. And then, Mike, we can show the other photo. This is a very all right. If you're listening on a podcast, this is a photo of a men's bathroom with a urinal and a toilet. This was at a Dunkin' Donuts that I stopped at. I
was going to ask if this is Dunkin'. I see the orange.
It is certainly not the first time I have been in a men's room at a restaurant or another place where it is a single room and there is a urinal and a toilet. And I understand the idea that a urinal, I think the idea, right, uses less water. And if you're just going number one, you should go in the urinal. You don't need to go in the toilet, save the water, right? Mm-hmm. But this setup, is it not fraught? And does it not make you nervous? And do you think it? I think it has to have happened in the existence of this bathroom setup where somebody didn't lock the door. One person was in there using the urinal, and the other person came in and sat down and started doing his business 3 feet away. Does this setup make you nervous? It makes me nervous every time I run into it, even if I understand why it exists.
I mean, I'm sure it has happened. I hope it hasn't happened. And if the person who made it happen ignored what I would consider a pretty important part of the social contract to make a one-man bathroom a two-man bathroom, that person should be in prison. So this is a one-man bathroom. I don't care how many toilets are in it. It's meant for one person.
It is a one-man bathroom. John's asking, is there not a lock on the door? There is a lock on the door, but locks can break. Locks can be forgotten. There can be, and it does. When you go, sometimes have you been at a men's room in a restaurant where you're knocking on the door to be like, oh, is there anybody in there? And then you open the door and it's like a door into a hallway, into another door. And there's nine toilets or urinals in there. And it's like, why was I knocking? Like, I do think, should it not be in public restrooms? Should they have on the door how many people can be in the bathroom at the same time? Should every public bathroom say 1 person, 3 person, 12 stalls, whatever it says, so you're not acting like an idiot knocking on a 12-stall door, waiting to like, oh wait, it's like a mansion in here. I hate that.
I think that should be standard.
Now, I also I've been in restaurants but then you go into another restroom and it's just a toilet, and it's like, well, whatever you're doing, you've got to go in there. Do you think that they should make a one-man bathroom that looks like that because they should save the water on the urinal? And the toilet's only for the other thing. Is this the right? If you were making a one-man bathroom in your place of business, would you have a urinal and a toilet or just a toilet?
I'd have, both. I'd have both.
You'd have both.
Yeah.
And you think it is what % risk? Because if it happens, it's the worst thing that's ever happened to you. And I'm not hoping. I'm curious if there is somebody watching or listening to this who has been in the one-man bathroom that turned into a 2-man experience. And is it the worst thing that ever happened to you?
What if it's ones only and you're back to back?
Oh, okay. But I'd still be worried. Like,
I wouldn't want, That's close proximity
only.
To have your back turned to a stranger. Yeah.
Because guess what happens sometimes? Your one turns into a 2. And we're back to back, and you can tell the other person's 1 is turning into a 2, and now you're like, get me out of here, get me out, right?
Yeah.
It's like Saw. This is a nightmare. This is what nightmares are made of. If you have ever had this happen, it just creates the possibility, however remote, that it could happen. And whenever I enter a bathroom that has a urinal and a toilet in a single room, it is all I think about. Has it ever happened? Could it ever happen to me?
I'd be terrified of that. Yeah. I also don't like you'll find the men's rooms that have 1 urinal and 1 toilet, but the toilet is in a stall.
Yes.
But I've been in bathrooms like that where that's the case, but then the urinal is like next to the sink with like no partition.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I guess I'll just wait to wash my hands.
Tight squeezes in public restrooms is not what anybody's looking for. You need space to operate in there, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, I would do a whole show on your 2-man bathroom experiences. 1-man bathroom, 2-man experience. That's my new 1-man show. 1-man bathroom. Sometimes I get too caught up in these things. I can't help it. But I wanted to enjoy my lovely donut. I wanted to enjoy my donut because what I did is I got the donut and a coffee and I put it on a table, and then I went in to go to the bathroom before I got my coffee and donut to go. And then I was in there and I was just like, the donut's ruined because this is all I'm thinking about. Anyway, that's how my wine works. Based. Thanks as always to our producer, Mike Urstowski, for making us look good and sound good. Landis, good luck with the air conditioner.
Thank you. I also want to point out that I'm in a hotel room. My wife is here working alongside of me. She said, "Is this show going to be as long as Mondays?" And I said, "No shot. That show was 220." I was right.
90 minutes I had on the rundown. 90 minutes. I was like, I think we might go under. Might go 120. I think we might go under. We're not even doing a showdown. This will be easy breezy. Just let the people go on with their lives. I don't know if we just have to accept that when we go twice a week, the show's 2 hours. Do we have to accept that? I don't want to accept it, but like I think we're fooling ourselves at this point. Yeah. There's too much ball, and we care too much. Thanks to everybody for being here. Great interaction in the live YouTube chat today. You guys bring it every single show, and we're so appreciative of that. Great interaction on askkotn@gmail.com. We are so appreciative to anybody who takes time out of their day to send a comment, send a question, keep us on our toes. Call us out if we get it wrong, if we're unfair. We want to know. Please tell us. And if you've ever been taking a leak and somebody came in and started going number 2 next to you, also tell us that at askkotn@gmail.com. We will be back to some showdowns next week. We have some interesting ones coming. For now, he's Bill Landis. I'm Doug Lesmerises. And that was Kings of the North.